Should I do the countdown from 5? Really?
I had just finished saying it.
And I'm the one with the black eye, ladies and gentlemen, today. Cipactli and Jessie Two Feathers.
All right, Simon.
Thanks for coming out
Thank you for having us, man.
and doing the podcast.
Thank
All
you.
right.
Appreciate it.
Have you guys done anything like this before?
Yes.
Yeah?
Yes.
Okay. So you're pretty familiar.
Yeah, Oreo de Radio and a couple others.
So you guys are in a band and you gotta, okay, so teach me how to say it because I don't think I'm saying it correctly.
Okay, so I'm gonna be honest. I'm not a stickler for it.
Okay.
There are some people in our community that are super about it, but as long as you say Quetzalcoatl, that's fine.
Quetzalcoatl.
In English, Quetzalcoatl.
Okay.
Quetzalcoatl.
Okay, so I think that's where like the confusion, at least for me, because when I hear that specific name, they're talking about the history of, is it the Mayan ruins or?
Talking about the Mexica, the Aztec people.
Yeah. Okay. So usually when they're talking about that figure, that dragon figure coming down from the side, exactly. Perfect. Can you get the shot of that? There we go.
The two
nice.
Quetzalcoatls coming down.
Yes. So when they pronounce it on like the History Channel, they use like an L at the end of it, which throws me off because I'm like, which one is it? Is it with an L or without an L?
Right. So I just want to make this clear. Like, no one was there when the Mexica were there. You know, none of us living today.
Right.
Right. And they spoke, their native tongue was Nahuatl. Right. But no one was there. And some people pronounce it Quetzalcoatl. Some people pronounce it Quetzalcoatl. Some people pronounce, and in English, we pronounce it Quetzalcoatl. Right. But I mean, I would assume that language has always been the way it is today. In other words, if you go down to the South here in this country, they speak English differently
Oh,
than
yeah.
we do. If you go to Boston, they speak English differently than we do here.
I always thought about that with Spanish, like how there's different states in Mexico.
Different countries too.
Right.
Like people from El Salvador have a different accent than Mexico. People from Cuba, people from Colombia. And on top of that, they have different words that don't mean the same.
Right.
Right.
And it's the same language too.
Right. Well, the thing with that is that even though we were all conquered by the Europeans, each region had its own native people to that region, and a lot of times they integrated some of their dialect or their language with the European Spanish language, right? Like chocolate, it's not really a Spanish word; it's a Nahuatl word, chocolatl, which is chocolate. Like avocado, aguacatl, which is aguacate, but it's just a bastardization of the Nahuatl word, right? So that's the same thing if you go to Cuba, if you go to Puerto Rico, they have their own words that come also from their indigenous roots from their land, from when the Spanish came. So the two languages and cultures got combined and they produced Spanish, but it's not the Spanish from Spain.
Yeah, it's not Spain Spanish.
And it's not Mexican Spanish, or, it's different because we all have our roots that we still, whether we know it or not, we're still expressing it in our language, in our dialect, in our customs, in our foods.
Right. And how do we even begin to think that Quetzalcoatl was the correct, like, how do we even think to, like, say it, that was correct? You know what I mean?
I hear you. I
Like,
mean, there are some people that still speak Nahuatl.
Oh, yeah, that's
There's
true.
still some people that speak Nahuatl, but I mean, I would, from region to region, they're gonna might pronounce it a little differently.
Right.
So just like you said, like someone from Zacatecas has a different accent than someone from Quintana Roo,
Right.
because it's different states in Mexico, and they're like different, one extreme to the next, you know?
And they each had like their indigenous like group, right? The Aztecs were in one place, and then like the Mayans were another, like things like that. And then there was like the ones from Sonora, and there was all these types of tribes that were throughout Mexico, but all different as well.
Right. And what's interesting about that, though, and not to lose the importance of it, is that even though there was regions where, like, for example, the Mexica were ruling, they still controlled and had ties with other natives. For example, natives from Guatemala, they would import their Quetzal feathers. Like they had connection with the Aztec Empire, and they would deliver these Quetzal feathers for them to, decorate their headdresses and all that.
Is that the one that was on it was at Montezuma's, right? The headdress he did?
The one that
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah,
it's in France, right?
Yeah, I think it's
Yeah,
in
it's in
France
France or in
or
England,
Germany.
that's the one that they don't.
Oh, that's the one that they're not giving back to Mexico.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's
Right,
some
they-
bullshit right there, dude. That's some bullshit.
But there's other items that are in Germany, England, I think has maybe a headdress and then the Codex Nuttall in Italy, and one from France also.
Yeah.
Really?
Yeah.
I know that the main thing France said was that they couldn't deliver that because it's so old
That's
that
right.
it could deteriorate or some bullshit.
Yeah,
But-
I was saying, like,
Because the
even-
elevation, right? The
So it was the vibration. So
Vib-
even if it's like if it's transported in the airplane, the vibration of the airplane moving and everything,
Yeah.
it can make it like literally like just burst into like
Right.
dust.
It's gonna implode like those people that died in the boat. It'll yeah, that's what they're saying.
That's what will happen, right? Because of the elevation, the vibration, them moving it. I mean, I don't know.
I seen in a picture though. It's encased in glass.
Can you pull it up? I want to take a look at it. It's still colored too, right? The last time I looked at it.
Yeah, it has color.
Yeah.
It looks like they just probably put it together yesterday. I mean, it looks good.
I
Really?
think it's not in France. I think it's
We'll
Vienna,
find out right
Austria.
now.
Yeah, it's in
El
Austria.
penacho de Moctezuma is what they call it, right?
Yeah.
I was thinking if they kept it in that glass, it'd be okay. to
Yeah, that's
transport.
what I'm thinking. See here.
Oh, there it is.
Yeah, there it
see,
is.
It's in Vienna.
How old is this thing? Oh my.
Well, the
jeez.
Spanish arrived in 1521. So how long it was like 3 years before the
15
Spanish
1519 or 15.
No, the Spanish got there in 1521. So 21, 22, 23. So they probably got a hold of this around 1524, 1525.
So it's like over 500 years ago.
Yeah.
Old.
Supposedly, it was like a gift to
Sagoon?
one of the queens and things like that.
Yeah,
where
but a
they-
gift from who though?
Yeah, exactly.
Moctezuma didn't give it to them.
No.
Hey, take our land, kill, rape our women, and take this, please.
Take my headdress.
Hey, here's my headdress, dude. You guys look good in it. Oh, 500 years old. How old is this thing?
How old?
Do we know how old this is?
Well, yeah, I'm sure
Around that
Moctezuma had it, and it was already before he even wore it,
But
right? It was.
They did give him a lot of gifts. I think they might have given him a headdress. I think if I remember reading it, they might have.
I don't believe
They gave him
nothing.
a lot-
I don't
quite a lot
believe
of
nothing they
gifts.
say, bro. They have a history.
Well, that's true. They
They have a track record of not really.
exaggerating.
Yeah, so
Yeah.
it's in Austria.
Oh, there you go, kid.
It is now in the Welt Museum Wien and is a source of dispute between Austria and Mexico,
There you
as
go.
no similar pieces remain in Mexico. That is terrible.
Yeah, it is.
That's really ironic that it's in Austria because that's where the other guy was from before or after Napoleon, remember?
I know. I was thinking about
Oh,
him. They're
yeah.
probably just mad because we killed him. You know the Emperor Maximiliano.
Yeah.
He was Austrian.
Yeah. He
Oh,
was from
what?
Austria.
And, yeah, because
that's why.
Mexico was part of France for like what 5 years, 10
Really?
years? Yeah, it was part of the French Empire.
Whoa.
And when that happened, the French sent Maximilian, and he was born in Austria.
And this was before the Spanish.
No, this was after the Spanish.
Oh, it was after.
This happened when the United States was having their civil war.
Mm-hmm.
The French came in and took over Mexico.
Interesting.
There's so much
Yep.
history that we just like. I mean, I
I'm
know-
glad we're talking about this because I've been for the past at least for the past week, I've been trying to dive into more Mexican
History.
Mexican history.
Yeah.
Yeah, and then that's where the Mexicans kicked out the French, for
Cinco
Cinco
Mayo.
de Mayo.
Like what was the slave woman that
We're talking about the
Her name was Malinche.
La Malinche.
Malinche? Yes,
Yeah.
I
We
heard
even-
about
we
that.
even have that word too.
Oh
in
my
Spanish.
Jesus, she was a slave and then befriended Cortez, had a couple of his children, and she was like being kind of like a spy or something.
A
like that?
translator.
Translator.
Counselor, and she would advise him and take him and to meet other
Show him
tribes.
around, right?
But they
Yeah.
even use her name as a derogatory term.
Yeah.
Do they really?
Yeah.
Like a traitor.
Well, Mexicans do, yeah. Like if you're like, somebody's like, "Tú eres bien malinchista," it means that, for example, like if I told you, "Oh, this kind of phone is made in Mexico," and you're like, I like the ones made in Japan. Eres
Oh, okay.
malinchista too, because you're a traitor. You like everything that's not from your land.
Yeah.
Whoa.
Yeah, so because she's a traitor,
Oh,
some people are saying that we shouldn't look at her like that, but they're saying, some historians are saying she did what she had to do. Like she was a victim of circumstance.
That's what I've heard.
But to an extent, you also have the ability to be like, I'm not going to do that.
Right.
She could have said, I'm not going to be a part of this, kill me, and that's it. But she didn't do that. So, but at the same time, a lot of tribes didn't like the Mexica people. So there was a lot of animosity against them.
I'm pretty sure what had to do with, she was a slave. That was another thing that blew my mind was, of course she was doing all this stuff, but he was in essence taking her out of slavery, right?
He did eventually. She moved to Spain. Like after New Spain was established, she went to Europe, and she lived her last days out there in Spain.
Really?
Wow.
That bitch.
But she
I'm
also,
saying.
I think she also married after Cortez. She went to another Spaniard that was in high command.
She was given to another
Yeah.
Spaniard.
Whoa. Spaniard
Just-
hopping.
And then I read a book that was very like on the feminist side of Malinche, right? And it was saying like, had the roles been reversed and it would have been like a man, like yes, it would have still been the same, like, oh, he betrayed, his people and everything, but they were putting it in the perspective of, because she was a woman, she got like more backlash than if it was a man. If it was a man, it would have been like, oh, he's doing it to protect his family. He did it to protect his honor. He got his family out of, whatever. They didn't kill his family, things like that. So there's like infinite things of like Malinche where it's like all these people are just like giving their own opinion on what the perspective of what she did was, and it's pretty interesting.
Can we think of another instance where this would happen, but instead of the Mexican history, maybe something in American history?
Yeah,
Pocahontas.
Right.
But it's not the story that Disney told us. She was forced into that. I'm even venturing, and don't quote me on this because I don't know. Maybe you could look it up. I think she was raped by him.
Yeah.
By John,
By
whatever his
John
name was.
Smith.
John Smith.
Yeah, he raped her, and she was like
She was like
12.
Yeah, something like that. It was
Yeah.
something She was very young.
Yeah, and he kidnapped her and took her with him to Europe. I mean, Europeans have nerve, dude.
Was it the same thing with?
They really do.
Was it the same thing with Malinche?
No,
Was she forced, or was it more of like,
Well-
hey, this is a plan. This is how we're gonna do it.
I think the Malinche story is a little more contrived, because the Mexicas had subjugated a lot of the other tribes, and she was part of that another tribe, right?
Yeah, I don't know which one.
She was part of the tribe that their biggest rivals, right? The Tlaxcalans, right? I think, but I don't know. You might look
so.
it up. Tlaxcalteca. I think she was a Tlaxcalteca, but don't quote me on that. But the difference was that after all the tribes that joined the Spanish in defeating the Mexica people, they were promised land and were promised royalty, and some of the Tlaxcalteca
Like how do I spell that?
Tlax
Okay, I kind of figured it was TLA. Also, they're from Tlaxcala.
Tlaxcala, Tlaxcalans, yeah. But in Spanish, los Tlaxcaltecas, yeah.
All right.
Yeah, but I mean, a lot of the like the people in higher positions with the Tlaxcaltecas and the other tribes, they ended up going to Europe too. They took them out over there, and they lavished them with gifts for helping the Spanish crown in bringing the savages to justice.
Good.
Wow.
What is this? Cultura
Tlaxcalteca.
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 Oh, look at it. Says on there, los guerreros traidores, the treacherous
Los
warriors.
guerreros.
I was going to say they're just as guilty as Malinche.
Yeah.
Well, guess one fact we do know, the Spanish would never have. We were just talking about that.
Right.
The Spanish would never have been able to conquer the Mexica alone.
Without the help of these
uh,
Yeah,
guys.
they had tens of thousands of
Tens of thousands of
Tlaxcalans on their
Yes.
side.
and other
Whoa.
tribes.
That's
other
what a lot of
tribes.
people leave out. A lot of books.
Yeah.
A lot of books do mention it, but
Yeah.
for the most part, a lot of history leaves that out. They say, well, 500 Spaniards with 16 horses
But it wasn't
conquered.
that.
Yeah, it was disease too. A lot of
It was
disease.
there was a lot of tribes that hated the Mexica. They were tired of being subjugated by them, and when these other people came and told them, we can set you free. You won't have to give any what do they call those, like tributes
Yeah.
to the Mexicas. You won't have to sacrifice any of your people. All you got to do is help us destroy them, and they did that.
And they had the Aztecs, Mexica had a weird thing where they went to war with the other tribes around them on a regular basis because they brought back a live prisoner was worth more than a dead one. It showed more honor, more bravery to bring back a live prisoner,
Wow.
Yeah.
than to kill a guy.
Where did you even start learning this stuff? Like, did you just pick up a book one day? Like, for you
go
Jesse.
Go first, Jesse.
For me, I started reading about Mexican history in '94. And that was my first trip to Mexico City and to
What propelled you to even start looking at history like this?
my own background.
Yeah.
I found out my grandmother and grandfather on my dad's side was from Nahuatl,
Oh,
And-
okay.
and they were like really indigenous on my dad's side. And then
You're a momia.
Mumia.
Yeah.
The mummy. The
Mummy.
mummy.
Oh yeah, that's where they have the mummies. Yeah. And so and I did go to Guanajuato, but I only spent like 3 nights there because my dad wanted to find out if we still had relatives, but wasn't there long. I was trying to find the little town called Canatillo,
Okay.
which supposedly my grandmother was from, and they came over like I guess early 1920s or something. I don't know, and settled in Montebello. And my mom's side, my great-grandmother, her grandmother was born on a Pueblo Indian reservation in New Mexico, southern New Mexico. So that got me really interested. And then at that time, the Zapatistas were big. So I went to Mexico City, and then I went to Morelos, where Zapata was born, just to look around, Then I seen the big statue of him on a horse in the central, right there in the center of Morelos. So after that, I just started reading everything I could get.
There is so much to read. It's just it's wild. Have you? The only book that I've read, I haven't. I'm like 90% done. Is the what is it? The Gold. Forgot what it's called. By Eduardo something. You can tell that I haven't picked it up in a long time. The gold veins of Latin America.
Oh no, Open Veins.
Open veins of Latin America.
Open Veins of Latin America.
Talk about a title.
Yeah,
Have you guys
really cool.
Have you guys seen that book or tapped into it?
No.
Oh my god.
They don't need to, dude. They
No, but I'm sure that it.
Any little thing will help. You never know what you can learn.
There's one really good book. I forgot the name of it, but
Are you talking about the Jesuit book you gave me?
No. The concerning the Mexica and the Aztecs, my manager had it when I worked for him, and I was going to borrow it, and it just never happened. It was from the Aztecs' point of view.
Oh,
really?
That sounds cool.
From when the Spanish came, yeah, it was their point of view it was pretty thick book too, and I forgot the name, and I was to this day I still can't find it.
This Open Veins is a pretty thick book too.
Really?
Like I can't. There's a problem with me when I have a book. I start I break down every page. I break down every paragraph. I break down every word. The reason why I got back into the Mexican history was I started listening to a book called the Chicano Movement for Beginners. It talked about the Aztecs, like the Malinche thing, in like the preface, and I dropped it, and I was like, fuck no, like I gotta look more into this because this is freaking wild. And the thing about me is my family is third generation, and we don't talk about our history. Like there's nobody talking about Mexican history. I'm not going to college at the moment. And I just been fascinated over the past couple weeks of Mexican history. And from that piece of information about Mexican history threw me back into when I was reading the Open Veins book. And let me tell you, it is crazy. It talks about like the CIA, the sugar fields, Cuba, like it. I'm fascinated with history.
Banana Republic alert.
Mm-hmm.
Same here. I read a lot of history.
Yeah.
Well, yeah. I mean, if you really think about it, to all the bigots and people who don't want to tolerate other people that don't look like them or have the similar culture as them. I mean, Europeans came here. I'm just gonna focus on this country. They came to this part of North America. They settled. They pushed the natives that were here out, tried to eliminate them. They brought Africans. They took the land from Mexico, but yet you don't like African people, you don't like native people, and you don't like Mexicans. But these were the lands that were inhabited by these people before, minus the Africans, obviously. So, for all the people that don't like other people or other cultures, your ancestors brought them here, brought the Africans here, and they came here where there was people that didn't look like them. So I mean, it's just
you made your bed and
dumb.
you're sleeping.
Yeah. And it's not only that they forced them out. At first, they try to build these treaties, let's work together. You can have some land, I can have some of it too, but I mean, they didn't keep their word, obviously. I mean, they in essence, they tricked them with a lot of these treaties back in, even with the treaties with early Mexico taking over. I forgot which one it is. It's like the Treaty of 18 something.
We're talking about the Treaty of
Hidalgo?
Guadalupe Hidalgo.
Something
Guadalupe
like, is it
Hidalgo one.
that?
Yeah,
where
that's the
where
one.
they took Texas, they took New Mexico,
Yeah.
Arizona, and like
Colorado,
Colorado,
Montana.
California.
Right.
Well, still recently, I think in 2016, remember Standing Rock in North or South Dakota?
Mhm.
They thought they
That was a
were
treaty.
polluting the water, and they took that over. So it's
Yeah.
still almost up to present day. Treaties are being broken, unfortunately.
I mean, that's the history of the European. I mean, everywhere they go. I mean, that's the history of this country too. I mean, you mentioned it a little bit ago. I mean, they invaded Cuba, Puerto Rico. They conquered Hawaii. Hawaii was its own sovereign state. They, went in there. I think they kidnapped the queen. They hijacked her or whatever so that the Hawaiian people would submit. I mean, this country has done a whole bunch of atrocious things. And then when things affect this country because of those things, they want to blame the people from those, like right now, right? When they don't want no people crossing the border, and they saying these people are rapists and criminals and so on and so forth. But everything that's happened in Central America, it's because of us. It's because of us. And I include myself because I'm over here. I'm a Chicano. But, this country has meddled in everybody else's internal affairs. And when you destabilize the country, that's what happens. You destabilize it. And people are going to search for a
Right.
better life. So they come here. And then you don't want them here. But we're the ones that made that country unstable in the first place.
And it's not unstabling it like over a decade or 5 years. It's been happening since the dawn of
Well,
since like the 1500s, since
Well-
they even got into South America and started
But I'm
making
saying-
those people.
since
take
the United
the-
States has been United States,
Mhm.
they've done it.
Right.
I
Oh,
mean,
yeah.
obviously, like you say, like Europe has always
Mhm.
done things like that. But since the United States has been the United States, if they don't like something, they take out that government.
Oh yeah,
Chile, El Salvador, Guatemala.
I think you'll like that one. Open Veins.
Yeah, I gotta check it out.
And
Check it out.
even like within like when the Spaniards conquered like some of the tribes in Mexico and things like that, their approach was like, oh, you guys are savages, we're going to teach you the ways that need to be taught. Like, you guys are savages, you need to assimilate with how people are, right? And for a long time, that's what was thought of these people, were that the tribes, indigenous people, were savages. But in actuality, I mean, what kind of angers me, and I know that I can't get angry anymore. I mean, I can, right? But I shouldn't, because it's something that
Just-
I can't go
You can
back.
get angry all you want, just don't punch me in my left eye.
No, but I can't go back and do is that we were so advanced, like like the aqueducts and math and knowing
Geometry,
time,
mathematics,
everything, like,
astronomy. Well,
like,
not
how are you
astronomy,
gonna
yeah.
call
Yeah.
Not
someone-
astrology.
Yeah.
Astrology too.
yeah.
Poetry.
How are
philosophy,
you gonna
art.
call us savages when all of that was brought from them, from us?
Irrigation, agriculture. Like I was watching this video yesterday of how Mexico's technology was exactly, or maybe even a little bit better than Europe's at the time. I
Well,
think this
yeah, it
was like
was.
in like the 1300s, 1400s.
Well,
was.
look at the chinamplas, where they grow the food. That was incredible what the Aztecs did.
On the
Where
lake.
Mexico City now sits,
Yeah.
they had to feed all those people. They had floating gardens,
Gardens, yes.
corn, whatever.
Everything was grown on top.
Yeah, and it was
They had one of the
Mhm.
greatest architects of all time, Nahuatl.
And remember,
Poet.
I seen the proof staying at his grandmother's house in 2018 in Quetzalcoatl. The irrigation, that's what reminded me when you said that. Remember the water underneath? is still from that time. The water
Jeez.
goes
Oh yeah,
underneath.
because you're talking about the
'Cause
wells.
we'd get a bucket and
Yeah,
take a shower. in
shower
there.
and stuff.
Yeah. And it's from that time. It runs right under his grandmother's house and under all those houses.
Well, that's why there's a lot of earthquakes in Mexico City, because the city is unstable. They are, they're built. Mexico City is built on top of New Spain.
on the
New
lake.
Spain is built on top of Tenochtitlan, and Tenochtitlan is built on top of Lake
Jeez.
Texcoco.
That's why if you go to the Zocalo, the big church there,
Uh-huh.
you could see the pyramid.
Well, they have, la
It's coming.
Torre Latinoamericana. La Torre Latinoamericana in Mexico City, it is sinking. Every year it goes down a couple of inches.
Whoa.
And the Zocalo.
The Zocalo,
Yeah, yeah.
everything is sinking.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So how long do you know how long it'll be until that thing's like
It's underwater?
underwater?
I don't know. That's a good question.
Maybe
I
a
don't
couple
know.
thousand years or sooner than that?
Think about all the relics and
Yeah.
they're going to
I
find.
don't
They're going
know.
to find a lot.
I don't know. But they a lot of the new buildings, they have like a system where it won't sink. It's being held up.
Oh, too bad.
Well, they
Like,
did
we
find a
wanna
lot of
see.
they did find a lot of gold and treasure when they were building the subway.
Yeah.
And they have an underground museum, remember?
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, the when we went to Mexico City, we toured Mexico City. When we went there, when we went to Templo Mayor, you're going underneath, but you're just on top of the pyramid. That's just the top of the pyramid. The pyramid is humongous, but you can't go in there because Mexico City's built on top of the pyramid.
Yeah, because the whole land is sinking and it looks like the pyramid's rising, but the land is sinking.
So when you go into the museum, you go down, and then you come back to an opening, but you're just walking on the top of the temples.
Oh shit.
They discovered that in 78, right?
I don't remember.
I think 78.
but the
Is this
Templo
one it?
Mayor is one of the largest.
What?
Yes, that's the one.
So this is just
Yeah.
the top of.
That's the top.
Oh, shit.
Oh, whoa.
You see the big church in the back?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, see, that's...
A lot of the temples, the Spanish destroyed, and the stone that those temples were made out of, they built Catholic churches. Unfortunately,
Dang. That must be wild,
there's a
dude.
picture, a very famous picture. Maybe you can Google it, where you see the Quetzalcoatl. It's just the head of a Quetzalcoatl, and there's a building right on top of it. It's like it's in downtown Mexico, I think, Mexico City.
What is it called?
I don't remember, but it's a Quetzalcoatl head, and it's just you only see that Quetzalcoatl head, and there's a bunch of buildings built on top of it, and you know that underneath the building there's a pyramid, well, a temple, because they're not pyramids, but yeah, man. I mean, when you go to Mexico City, man, like when I go there, I feel like I'm home.
Yeah.
You know, I feel like this is my land.
How
my
did
culture.
how did you feel when you were there? Like actually like
Yeah,
there.
I felt, you know.
Feeling the I mean, are you able to touch these things? Like or
Yeah.
how was it? Like
I mean, I felt very emotional.
yeah?
You know, I felt like
Did you feel some energy when you were there?
I just felt like, oh, see the one on the corner. See, you just see the muzzle of
This
the
one right here.
The Aztec serpent
that's
head.
that's a building built around that, and that's just the top of the temple.
Mm.
Yeah. Yeah, but yeah, man, I don't know. For me, you can't help but feel sad, like feel proud, but feel sad for the you know the tragedy that happened all those years ago. You know, I'm not gonna go beat up any Spanish people, but, but that you didn't have nothing.
If
to do
you
with
get
it.
that mob together, let me know. And let
You'll
Amber
be the
know.
first one I call.
I'm like, let me be the first one you call.
Imagine a world where the Spanish never entered Mexico. Like, how advanced would Mexico be? Like, how advanced would North America, like the Western hemisphere, like how advanced and how much did we actually lose from that conquest?
Yeah, I think
Imagine that.
I think, man, that's the flip of a coin, man. Because there were many cities that in Mesoamerica, but also up here in North America, that were abandoned. Like there's temples in North America, Cahokia. If you look that up, that's in central United States, and it's a pyramid.
In Illinois or something.
Yeah, the tribes people here made it, and then they abandoned the city.
It's still there.
Yeah, you can actually go visit. There's tours.
Yeah, I want to go.
How do
And
you spell it?
CAHO,
CAHO.
Cahokia. You see right
Oh,
there?
right here. Go.
KI. Oh, yeah.
That's here in the United States, and there's images there of what it used to look like. So there were a lot of indigenous civilizations here, from the tip of Alaska to the tip of Argentina, that built temples, that had cities, that had thriving art, mathematics, all of that. But a lot of
There
times
was a lot.
they would abandon the cities for some reason. I don't know. They would abandon them and then move on. We don't know. Scientists don't really know exactly why a lot of these civilizations would leave, but they would abandon the sites and then move forward and create other sites.
There was this strange thing that I heard yesterday, that a lot of these civilizations took a lot from like the Aztecs and the Mayans back because they were simultaneously throughout time, they were living in the same time as each other. And I think it was like some art and the way they built things was like almost identical to Aztecs or Mayans back in those times.
Sure. I mean, yeah. I mean, they were all on this continent, So, yeah.
But what I'm saying is like the distance between them was like very
Great.
was great. Like they were thousands and thousands of miles away from each other.
Yeah. I mean, it's when I think about that. For example, also not to deviate too much, but for example, when people think of dragons, right?
Right.
Europeans have their tales of dragons. Asians have their tales of dragons. The Mexica, Quetzalcoatl, that's a dragon.
Right.
They didn't know each other. The Chinese didn't know the Aztecs. The Aztecs didn't know the English, but they all knew about dragons in some way or another. How could that be? I think it's like humans just have that connection. We can develop things differently, but similar.
Right, because we're looking at a certain thing like the dragon figure, but through our culture and through our lens.
Right. And
Right.
but we
Through different filters of our experiences.
but we still know, for example, there's a sky and a ground and the moon and the stars, and I mean, that's the beauty of humanity, man. We are all connected. Even though we don't think we are, we are. It's like I think we are all like a puzzle. But a puzzle that has so many parts. And if one of those little parts is missing, then it does affect all of us. You feel it. I remember once, a long time ago, my ex-wife got in a car accident. And I felt it. I felt something was wrong. And then I got a call. I was at work, and they're like, hey, dude, your wife got in a car accident. And I was like, I knew something bad had happened. I felt it, because you have that connection. But anything that we do as human beings, when we're interconnecting, when we're talking, when we're connecting and physically and mentally, you feel it. But a lot of times we ignore it.
Why do we ignore it? What do you think?
We ignore it because we're taught to ignore it. It comes back again to the European way of thinking. When you're a kid, you're learning, everything's new to you, and your parents might be like, don't do that, don't touch that, you can't fly, you can't, all these things that they put limitations on you.
Right.
So that they're breaking a disconnect. You don't know what I'm doing when I'm in the other room. How can you know? That doesn't make any sense. But you don't have to know. You can feel it. You can feel it. So
Everything's feeling.
yeah, but there's
Like your
that gut feeling.
I was
Yeah.
gonna say like a gut feeling, right?
It's part of your chakras. I mean, you have a chakra here, you have a chakra right here, and
But
you have a
people
gut
don't-
chakra
But
too.
the majority of society, especially in more quote unquote advanced, um, what do they call industrialized nations, they don't believe in that.
But it's all made up.
What's made up?
The industrial,
Oh.
the scientific
Well-
industrial way of thinking. Like, who made that up? That's something made up. Somebody was sitting down at a desk writing all that stuff.
Well, there are some studies. I mean, I'm not gonna say everything is bull. I mean, there are some things that have helped.
Oh yeah, of course.
But in reality, if we took better care of ourselves, if we ate better, if we drank more water, if we stopped smoking,
You want some more water?
yeah, that'd be great. If we stop drinking,
That was his way of telling me,
I
"Hey,
was
bro,
like, hey, what's
pop
up
me
with,
off."
what's up with the Nahuatl? All right, and
Jesse,
No, I'm okay.
You good?
nah, he drinks air.
There we go.
Yeah.
But I get what you're saying because it you know that's something that I always think about with our body. It's like we have to be in tune, right? And I know when people say like, oh, astrology, right? Let's say like your sign, right? When someone's like, oh, what sign are you? And then they're like, ha ha ha, it's so funny and things like that, right? And there's a certain point that I believe in like astrology and all that. But I also think like we came from the earth. Like, how are we not aligned with the moon? How are we not aligned with the sun? Like, how do those large masses not affect us? They have to. We live among them.
Yeah,
How do they not affect us? How do we not run our lives around them?
What I've heard in the past couple days is that vibrations and energy is what this world is built upon. It's magnetic fields. We don't see them. Of course, that's why some science and other people of authority say that it's not, I mean, because we can't see it and we
Right.
can't, there's no way to measure it. Like, we're unable to announce that it's fact. You know what I'm saying? So if we can't see it, if we can't, there's no way of measuring it, then how can we possibly say that it's actual fact? I think that's where the problem lies.
right. I mean,
Like, is there a way to measure a chakra? But thousands
I'm
of
sure there is people who are like a shaman or somebody would feel it and be like, oh, this is your intensity.
right, but in 2023 science, like what's a shaman? In the lens of what I'm saying is, like, yes, all this stuff, the energy and the earth and astrology, it's all like one thing. But when you start to bring that up in like today's society with 2023's lens of science, like it's pseudoscience, or it becomes pseudo myths. It becomes a myth, right?
Right, because they can't read it.
Because there's no way to measure it.
measure it.
Right.
There's some things you can't measure, though. I mean, I don't know. But I don't think there's a way of measuring.
Right. We can't measure.
Love.
We can't.
You can't measure humanity.
I'm pretty sure we can. There's a way to measure love, right? Because it's just a chemical reaction in your brain.
You got to go to the carnival and put that. Did you guys ever see that?
Yeah.
Where you put your finger and it says, "Oh, you're a red hot." Yeah, you got to go to that love meter. Yeah.
That's one way to do it. I mean, because that's where I'm like stuck in the middle. I'm stuck in the middle because I do look at certain situations with the lens of like science, but also not science, if that makes sense.
No, I'm with you, but I think there's a fine line.
Right.
You know, I think science and technology is great, but there's a limit. For example, like in our music, when we record in the studio, most part, we don't use a click track for the most part. You know, and a lot of bands and a lot of artists do. They put a click track and they record and they follow it, and it's like perfect.
Right.
But why would you want to do that? And somebody would be like, because it sounds better and it's like on time, it's on beat, and you land. but why do you want to sound like a robot? Why do you want to sound perfect? Part of being human and part of having the human experience is imperfections. Some of us are tall, some of us are short, some of us are darker than others, some of us have hair, some of us don't, some of us are men, some of us are women. You are not going to be quote unquote perfect. So trying to be perfect is not going to help us. Like trying to make a technology to make you, have a perfect body, have a perfect this, have a perfect sound, have a perfect, it's not the right way to do it. Look at Star Wars. You have the dark side and the light side, right? And what's the difference? The dark side's guided by technology. The Jedi, they're not. They're closer to they're more natural. It's the battle of technology.
Is that what that movie is about?
Yeah,
really?
It's about. Let me look at the meanest guy in the trilogy. I'm talking about the original trilogy, right? Now, I don't want nobody out there being like, man, I'm talking about the OG, all right? Not that other stuff that came out. I'm talking about the OG stuff. The Darth Vader,
right?
Machine, right? Luke Skywalker, he's human, and he had like doubts, and he was like, struggles, and that's part of humanity.
Who wrote Star Wars? What's
George
his name?
Lucas.
George Lucas. Is that what he was trying to tell us? He was trying to warn us from technology
and fascism
taking over.
Here's something a lot of people don't know. The Mayans had a stone called the Jadeite stone.
That's right.
Really?
They had a character called the Skywalker.
That's true.
What?
They went to war according to the stars, and so they called it Star Wars.
No, really?
Yes.
I spent 2 months in Guatemala in 2005 and found all this out. I didn't know it either. But, yeah, that's all based. And you notice on the third one, the third episode.
You're talking about the original trilogy, right?
Yes, the third one.
Let's put it out there.
Is George Lucas Spaniard?
No.
You notice
he's American.
You notice the Mayan temples coming out of the jungle on the Return of the Jedi? The Ewoks are?
Can you look that up?
Yeah.
This is first time I heard that.
You know what? Right, we haven't even got into your guys' band yet.
The reason, no, wait, hold on. The reason why I asked if he was Spaniard because, like, is this like out there? Do people know that like he kind of like formulated Star Wars from this Mexican history?
He formulated Star Wars from a lot of different mythology,
from Mayan, Guatemalan,
but not just that. A lot of different. He picked and put a new story together, that took place in space.
I also heard like it had some ties for like relics of like World War II.
I mean,
they had some dogfight scenes that were based out of World War II.
But if you look at what happened
airplanes.
in there, it talks about what happened in World War II. Like somebody came into power. The old republic got destroyed. Fascism came in. I mean,
but he did take main characters out of Guatemalan Mayan history. Yeah. And one thing I want to mention about the Cahokia Mounds. Right now, I'm reading a book on the Native Americans of that part, all the way down to Tennessee and Mississippi. And the thing that
the Mississippians
I remember is the Aztecs had this thing called the Atlatl, or Atlat, if you don't mention the L, where they went like this, and it gave more power to the arrow or the spear. And I think you were mentioning something about like cultures influencing each other or getting different things, maybe artifacts or bowls that they copied from Mesoamerica all the way up to Arizona, say.
Right.
Now, I think this is one of the things that might have transferred up there because, the Gulf of Mexico, I'm sure they had to explore and trade with the natives of Mexico, with the natives of the coast of Georgia, Florida, and on up to Missouri and Mississippi and Tennessee, even though those weren't coastal, they traveled. What I read is that from Cahokia, they also had the same name for the spear, Atlatl, where they do it like this, where, you just don't throw it with your hand. But they had a thing where you slip your finger in there and it kind of went further, or
Right.
had a different, I guess, advantage or way of throwing a dart or arrow.
Don't forget that we were just talking about that. The Aslan is that, it's up here in North America.
Yeah.
Aslan, where the Mexica came from.
Yeah.
And I've always said that based on the language, the Mexica came from the Hopi people. The Hopi, that's where my mind's at. That the Hopi moved, a section of the Hopi tribe moved down to the Mexican Valley and became the Mexica.
Well, yeah.
And their language is part of the Nahuatl.
Yes, all the way up to Oregon, in California, and especially the Apaches, Utah, Texas, New Mexico. All that's Nahuatl language.
Indo-Nahuatl.
Yeah.
Yeah.
What is this? What are you looking up?
Oh, you had said to look up.
Yeah, the Star Wars Mayan info.
Yeah.
What the fuck?
You see back there where the guy's pointing the...
Yeah.
Yeah, right there, yeah.
The
Click on
temple's
that?
right there.
Oh, I forgot right here.
Oh, okay. I was my interpretation of photo of the day. What is that? Who's that?
That's what they're talking about. This is from the
Yeah, it's from Star Wars.
So this is one of the scenes, and then here are the Mayan the ruins,
Temple.
the temples. So that what he's saying is that in the movie they're shown like.
Oh, they're shown in the actual movie. Okay.
Right. A little cameo.
That's wild.
Yeah.
And this is what, the ruins in Guatemala?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, because
Or
the
Belize
Mayans
too.
the Mayans went all the way down, right? Like through.
El Salvador,
Yeah, Belize,
I
Guatemala,
believe. Yeah,
Quintana Roo,
Nicaragua.
Mexico.
Yeah.
I'm sorry to keep on this, but can you pull up a timeline of like the Mayans and the Aztecs? Because I feel like they weren't sporadic throughout timeline, right? I work well with timelines.
You're wondering if they overlapped?
Right.
They did.
Yeah,
I mean,
right.
the Mayan Empire wasn't around anymore, but there were still Mayan villages and Mayan people.
The Olmecs were way
was way
early. That
before.
was way before
Before.
Yeah. They look like me. Those heads look like
Yeah,
my
the
head.
Yeah.
That's the first. So I went to the Cheech Marine
the
art center,
museum.
the
Yeah.
museum. Super freaking awesome. And I went to, I forgot what room it was, but they had a huge Olmec
Head.
Where's
Head.
that museum at?
In Riverside, dude.
in Riverside off of University.
Yep.
Oh, wow.
Oh, the one they made it seem like a space.
Yeah,
Right?
that
Oh, I
was
gotta
cool.
see that.
Yeah. Okay, so Inca, Maya, and Aztec timeline, 300 BC. Can you put that on the screen so that way people can take a look? Because I'm not going to read the whole thing.
I
Just
think this is
what is that?
a video. Oh shoot.
Teotihuacan went out the same time as the Mayans.
Yeah, and Teotihuacan was there before that. The Mexica got there.
No, I know, but I mean, I
Right.
wonder if the Mayan civilization
No, but I'm just
Oh,
saying,
it's
like,
long.
and
that was
Is it?
Teotihuacan went out at the same
right,
time.
and that was
Yeah.
another civilization before the Mexica,
Well,
right?
that's what I mean.
Right.
If they
Right.
more or less stopped being civilizations at the same
That's a
time.
good point. Yeah, correlating.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You guys could talk into the mic.
Okay.
Well,
Yeah, that's what he said. Yeah. Yeah. Check it out.
Chronologically, wait,
Yeah. Mesoamerica.
chronology, Mesoamerica timeline. There we go. This is what I'm talking about.
So the Olmec were first.
They were there first, 1200 to 400. Wait, 1200 to 4000 BC.
400.
No, 400.
BC.
What?
400 BC. Yeah, as the time goes up, it has to go back to zero.
It diminishes.
Yeah, because you're going from before the time of our Lord. So once it's the time of our Lord it starts, then you go one again.
Oh, is that how it works?
Yeah.
Really?
Yeah. So that's why it says BC, before Christ.
So it was
That's
before
400
he
years
was-
before Christ.
Oh, okay. So as time moves forward, it diminishes backward. Because
Yeah.
that's 1200 to 400
400,
BC. So
right.
that's
Yeah.
8, 10, 11, 12. So that's 800. So the Olmec were like calendar year. They were here for 800 years.
Yeah.
The Olmecs.
According to
FAMSI Foundation for the Advancement of Mesoamerican Studies.
According to John II's timeline.
And then the Zapotec.
And then the Zapotec for 500. So they ruled. They were there for about 500 BC. 500 years. The Maya for what? What is that? 15.
See, AD.
500 AD.
BC
Oh,
to,
okay.
What's AD?
After
death.
Yeah.
I wonder who came up with that. Like,
Anno
okay,
Domini.
we're gonna use
Who did?
this.
No, it's Anno Domini.
Oh yeah, Anno Domini.
Oh.
It's not after
The
death.
year of our Lord.
Oh.
I don't know. I'm very.
The year of your Lord.
Not mine.
She said that.
I didn't grow up with any religion growing up, so I know very little of Christianity, Catholicism, and all that.
Yeah, I was indoctrinated into Catholicism.
So that's how I'm like, not my Lord.
Yeah. But I'm not a Catholic.
El Tajín, is that?
Where?
Yeah, that's a village temple.
El Tajín. And what's the one before Aztec? What is that?
Teotihuacan.
Whoa. So the Aztecs were like way after Olmec.
Yeah.
And Maya was, okay. They overlapped a little bit, maybe? Or no, not at all, according to John Paul's Mesoamerica.
No, I mean it's not far off. But what I will say this is when I see graphs like this, it kind of irks me because we're all still here. I mean, there's Zapotecos. There's people that are Zapotec. There's people that are Mayans. There's people that are like, I did my DNA test. You know, I told my cousin, I was like, dude, I did my DNA test. He's like, for what? And I was like, I'm Native. He's like, yeah, I know. Why would you do it? But I was like, no, but I want to know like more in depth. And of course, you can only go so deep. You know, even science can't tell you exactly, right? But I'm like, I think it was like 30% European, and then the rest Indigenous, and then like 2% Mayan.
2% Mayan?
Wow. And the other the rest of my indigenous roots is Central Mexico, which is, you know, San Luis Potosí, Mexico City, Puebla, all of that territory, but you know, which is, you know, Mexica territory.
Have you tried that, Jesse?
I did.
You've done it?
You know,
what does yours say?
Mine says 42% Native American.
Really?
And the thing is, I did mine through, I forgot the name of it, but there's only two of them. There's
23andMe and Ancestry DNA.
Yeah,
I did Ancestry.
Ancestry DNA is better. I did both.
Oh, really?
I didn't tell them anything about my background. I just sent in my DNA. And they almost pinpointed. They said, you have roots in southern New Mexico. And southern New Mexico is one of the reservations where my great-grandmother was born. And then they did pick Mexico around Guanajuato. So I think they're pretty accurate.
Yeah, they are.
And I didn't tell them anything about my background. But, so came out 42%.
Would you guys do it?
I've
done it
already.
I've done it.
Really?
And what does yours say?
Tell them what you came.
I came out 80% Indigenous Mexican from Guanajuato. Of course, that has diminished, and I think, how long has it been since I did it? I think since 2 years.
2 years, but it went down a little bit.
It changed over time. I think it lessened about 15%, and I think that's just from like collecting more data as time goes on.
Yeah, I
and
noticed
on.
sometimes they do change the numbers a little.
But it's only like 3 or 5%. Are you
6%, something like that. Spaniard.
Everything else is
Spanish. Yeah.
Right.
Yeah. 80% was wild. I was like, whoa, that's cool.
That's cool.
Yeah.
I think from there, and it's interesting too, because that's like when I did that and I found that information out, I was like, whoa, like I have to start learning a little bit more about history. And like I said earlier in the podcast, like my family we don't talk about our history. Like we don't know where our grandparents.
Why do you
are
think
from.
that is?
I don't know, because we're too busy playing with their phones and
We're
worrying
too busy
about
on the
who.
Xbox.
I think
We're worrying about getting promotions at work. We're worried about like who's going to jail, who's not, who just got
So
out
when
of jail.
somebody asks you, "What are you?" What do you say?
I say I'm Chicano.
Okay. What about you?
I'm Mexican. I'm not Chicana.
Why is that?
Well, she's from Jalisco.
This is a hot
Because-
topic
No,
right here.
well,
No.
yeah. This I want to. Not. I just want to know her point of view, right?
Okay.
Because
What-
I feel for me, and this is something that within the past couple months, Gil and I have
We've been discussing this
discussing
for a while now.
a
actually.
lot.
A lot.
Just
lately.
because we've been like more with the podcast and people that we've come into contact with, or even events that we've gone to, and you know the word Chicano, Chicana, this and that. And honestly, I don't identify fully with like someone that's Chicano or Chicana, and maybe I'm wrong, right? But for me, growing up first generation here, my parents were both from Mexico. We grew up very Mexican, speaking Spanish, you know, like
She said very
I'm like
Mexican.
very Mexican. And for me, the difference between like Gail, that's third generation, and myself, and when we came together as, you know, a couple, we were so alike, but yet so different. There was culturally things that we were both Mexican, but we were both Mexican on two different spectrums in a way, if that makes any sense,
Of
right?
course. Yeah.
So I feel like for me, Chicana, it's not something that I identify with per se. And then maybe I'm wrong, like I'm saying, but
No, that
I
makes
don't,
perfect sense.
I don't feel Chicana. I do feel connected to, I mean, I guess, no, I don't know. I'm not going to say I feel 100% connected to the U.S., right? I do because I live here and because I was born here. But culturally, I feel more connected to my roots in Mexico. I still
Okay.
have family there. We practice a lot of, you know, of our, you know, just things. Like, I don't know. I mean, like I said, maybe I'm wrong, but for me in my household, we never said, oh, so-and-so's Chicana, oh, we're Chicanos. Like, that was never a word that we used. I knew what it was, but it was never something to identify ourselves.
I just found out what, like, just over the past couple of years, what Chicano meant, and I found the definition, and I was like, I feel more Chicano than I do Mexican, and that's just for me. And that's where I leave it when people ask me. Like, even we weren't having the debate, right, Amber? Remember when somebody asked me, like Gil, like, what are you? Like, what you just asked me. I tell them I'm Chicano, but
Chicano with an X.
I can't even begin to fathom with the X or without the X with the.
You're not there yet.
But
I'm not there yet. No,
I also feel,
I'm reading Chicano movement for beginners. I'm a beginner at the moment right now.
But I also feel like Chicano is this term that, yes, it's powerful and it was made for that, but ultimately you're Mexican. You're from Mexican descent.
Yeah, but yeah, you're right. It's
Chale.
ultimately Chicano
Chale.
All
Chicana?
are Mexican.
Chicana or Chicano means
Mexican American.
You're born here.
Right.
You have roots in Mexico.
right.
That's all it is.
Right. So do you consider yourself Chicano?
I am yeah. Because
Okay.
I was born here, but
All right.
my relatives, my grandparents were born in Mexico.
Right. I'm a Chicano with an X.
Okay, so tell
But-
me what's
but
the X and what's.
Hey, but he was
Before-
born in Mexico City.
Okay.
You were born in Mexico.
I'm gonna
Okay.
get to that. So I was born in Mexico City,
Okay.
Distrito Federal, La Capirucha. However, I immigrated to this country. You know, my parents brought me here when I was 3 years old. So I never grew up in Mexico. I grew up here in LA, South Central, all my life. My parents, I'm first generation. My parents, you know, spoke Spanish. And I grew up, like you said, really Mexican. Watching Chavo del Ocho, Sábado Gigante, listening to Los Bukis, like norteño music, all of that. But when the band was on tour in Mexico City, a couple of things happened there that made me say that I'm Chicano. First off, a lot of Mexicans don't like us. I'm going to just put it out there. A lot of Mexicans in Mexico and Mexicans here don't like us. Okay? They don't like us because they feel they're better than us because they're from Mexico and we weren't born in Mexico. So, and I include myself in that because it's happened to me when somebody's, oh, you're from Mexico City. Sí, soy del DF. Oh, yo soy de por acá, ¿conoces? No conozco. No que eres de México. Pues sí, pero, entonces tú no eres mexicano. Tú no eres mexicano, güey. So, right there, they're ostracizing me, right? So then I'm like, you're right. I'm not Mexican. I'm Chicano. And another reason was that when we were over there, they're like, ustedes no hablan ni bien. Ustedes no hablan bien. Ustedes hablan el español, no lo hablan bien. Like, because we went to different radio stations and we would be talking and they were like, sí, es que ustedes no lo hablan bien. Ustedes dicen, por ejemplo, we were with this other band.
Well, what do they say that you talk like?
Well, they say that us over here, we don't talk Spanish correctly.
Mm.
Because
what kind of Spanish do they talk? Like,
well, for
castellano?
example, no. Well, they said, this is what they told me.
Mm-hmm.
Like, oh, por ejemplo, cuando yo estaba allá, yo escuché que allá ustedes dicen, oh, voy a llenar una aplicación para un trabajo. Eso no está bien. Aplicaciones, voy a aplicar pintura en la pared. I'm going to apply a coat of painting. Y ustedes dicen aplicar a un papel para llenar para un trabajo. Esa es una solicitud. No es una aplicación. Y luego ustedes dicen, oh, que voy a ir a una troca. ¿Qué es eso? Una camioneta.
You know I don't speak Spanish.
Well, that's okay. So that's good because you're seeing as a Chicano how it feels like. So even though I speak Spanish,
yeah,
you're right. I don't speak it like they speak it in Mexico City.
Gotcha.
Like to me, like you know what a troca is, right? If
Yeah.
they say troca, you're Chicano, a troca.
but
right?
they don't say
and
truck
they make
like
fun
that.
of that. They're like, oh, these fools don't know how to talk. They don't know
Yeah.
how to talk. So when we were in the interview, I was like, what does it matter? Spanish isn't our language either. You think Spanish is your language? And the guy was like, well, I'm like, it's not. It's not called Mexican. We're not speaking Mexican. You're speaking Spanish because people came and raped your ancestors and you spoke Spanish now.
Right.
But you're not. And if you go to Cuba, they speak Spanish differently. If you go to
Right.
Ecuador, you speak Spanish differently. So us, we're Chicanos. That's the way I look at it because we have roots and we are Latin brothers and sisters, but we're not Mexican.
That's what I've
That's
read.
how I feel.
That's what I read with this Chicano book, is that Chicanos are more in tune with their Mexican like deep roots of Mexican heritage. That was like one of the first lines in the
Right.
book.
But I think to me that's an old way of thinking.
Okay.
To
Well,
me,
this is
the
an
new-
old book. I don't
right,
I
to
don't
me,
know how
the
old
new-
this book
the-
is.
To me, the way a Chicano is anyone from a Latin country, even though some people might be like, oh, blasphemy, from a Latin country that is born here. Why? Because, for example, I could have a friend from El Salvador. Their parents are from El Salvador. But when we're growing up, we both like the same music. We both like the same movies. He knows Los Wookiees. I know, Nirvana. He knows Nirvana. I know Ren DMC. He knows Ren DMC. I like pupusas. He likes pupusas. We like tacos. We are what we've always been. the
I
same
feel
people.
like how can the Chicano culture be like it's so subjective to each and different person
Yeah, I
because
don't think so.
it means different. It means something different
That's
to
where
everybody.
That's why we have a problem. For example, in the African community, they know they're African.
Right.
You go to an Afrocentric place, it doesn't matter that your ancestors came from Kenya, Mozambique, South Africa, Egypt, Morocco, Zimbabwe. You have African roots, my brother. You know what I'm saying?
Right.
It's the same thing with us, but a lot of our people They don't get it. Whether you're from El Salvador, whether you're from Nicaragua, whether you're from Mexico, whether you're from El Salvador, it's the same. The Mexica were in contact with the natives of El Salvador, in contact with the natives of Guatemala, in contact with the natives of North America. There was back and forth going between all the people.
Yeah, you're right.
And when we say, oh, pero es que you're Salvadorian and I'm Guatemalan y tú eres Mexicano, and so only the Chicanos are only Mexican. Third, fourth, fifth generation can call themselves Chicanos because they came from Mexico. No. We're all indigenous to this continent, to Turtle Island. We all are from here. So there's no difference. So we're all, if you are here, but your parent is from a Latin American, quote unquote, country, but you've never been there, you grew up here, you're Chicano, I say.
Right. But
you're Chicano. That's the way I look at it. And if we can go beyond the Salvadorian blah blah, we're gonna be more united, and this culture will blossom.
Basically, anybody that's Mexican American is Chicano.
Anyone that's Latino.
Not to me.
No.
Like I said, if your parents were Salvadorian,
Mm-hmm. Oh, gotcha. Okay,
right? Or if your parents were from Colombia, but you're here, like, whatever we're into from here and our roots, we're here. I've never been. If I've never been to Colombia, how are you gonna say I'm Colombian if I've never been to Colombia?
Mexican. So anybody that's part of Mexico or has origins in Mexico and
he's just
South Central America,
Latin America
in general. Okay.
Yeah,
or
like
Latinos.
you could be. Yeah, right.
But Latinos that are here, right, is what you're saying,
right?
Which
So
are
like,
in the US.
obviously, if
Chicanos.
my dad was Salvadorian and he came here, he's not a Chicano. Even if my dad is Mexican and he comes here, he's not a Chicano. He's Mexican. Yeah. So I think once we get that through our heads and realize that is true, we're all natives of Turtle Island, then we're all Chicanos.
That's true, but you make it sound sometimes like, for instance, I have a friend who's half Mexican and half Nicaraguan. And, he knows all the American bands and the U.S. bands. Although when it comes to food, his mom is Nicaraguan. Mm-hmm. They're from Nicaragua. They bring that specialty food over here, and he gets a taste of what it was, what they cook over there. So, and then likewise, some of the music comes from there, influence them. So they still have
right.
Culturally, a connection
right,
with
but
food,
they're not,
music.
But they're not. But like I said, you're not 100% connected to that culture. Like
right,
when I went to Mexico,
not 100%.
When I went to Mexico the first time, 1986,
but the influence is there.
I felt kind of weird. Like I was like, this is weird, and the music they listen to is weird. I thought it was kind of weird, and I didn't get it. And my cousins were like, "You don't like this?" I was like, "No." Like, to me, it was kind of lame. I was like, this is lame. Like over there in the U.S., we have good music and we play like Pac-Man and like you guys over here like some lame stuff, But I was a kid. I was like 10 years old, But so I had kind of like a culture shock, So I mean, now that I'm grown, like even now, I don't feel Mexican like to the country. Like I'm not like waving the Mexican flag because I think that's part of that flag is remnants of colonialism because the criollos created that flag, not the real Mexicans. The criollos created that flag. So why would we wave something that is not even really truly what we are?
Well, the eagle on the cactus came from
that's it. But
Mexica.
But that flag is the Italian flag with an eagle and a cactus. Yeah. So why would I fly that? And there's just a lot of things that just don't make sense, but people go with it and they don't question it. You need to question it and think critically about these things so that you understand what it is. But people sometimes don't bother to do that. They just go with the flow. It's like if I show you a rapper or a band or an artist, and at first you might be like, I don't know, but everybody around you is, man, this is dope, dude. What are you talking about? This is dope. And then everybody all of a sudden is like, yeah, you're right. This is dope, man. This is dope. But are you doing it because you really think it's dope, or because all your friends are telling you it's dope? There's too many followers and not enough individualism. And that happens in our own people. That's when we all just be like, we're all Chicanos because of this, and that, and we're moving forward. Things will be better. Because even in Mexico, you can go to Puebla and eat huevos rancheros, and they're totally made different than in Chihuahua. Mm-hmm. It's the same country. They don't say, well, you're not Mexican because look at my huevos rancheros. It's not like yours. So what? That in Salvador they have pupusas, and in Mexico they have tacos, and that in Guatemala they have Guatemalan tamales. Who cares? Eat it. If you like it, you like it. If you don't, you don't. Why are you gonna make little? That's the biggest fault of our people, that we don't want to see beyond that.
Yeah.
When I was reading the Chicano book, okay, so I don't want to.
No, go. Go with what you're gonna say.
For you, like at least from what I look at the Chicano culture, I feel like it's all one-sided to one culture, and that's the lowrider culture. Why is that? Do you see it that way? I feel like I've maybe. Because are
you talking about cholo and lowrider culture?
Yes.
See, let me say something before you go on with that, because I want to hear your thing. I think growing up, that's why this whole we're not Chicanos kind of stemmed from, was because that's for me that was a stigma. That was a stigma of what a Chicano was, right? This cholo, this lowrider, these like oldies. I love oldies, right? But it was that stigma behind what a Chicano was. And for me, or at least for my parents growing up, it was like, no, we don't identify with that. We like those things, but it's not who we are. That's not who we are totally as a culture. It's not who we are totally as people here. So for us, that's what was taught for us was, we're not Chicanos, we're Mexican. Like you're Mexican. So that's why I grew up with that identity crisis of I don't know what I am. You know what I mean? And for me, the easiest thing to say is I'm just Mexican, because I don't identify 100% with the Chicano culture that's out there and stigmatized, but I also don't identify, like you said, 100% with Mexican culture, because I had that culture shock like you did. I would go to Mexico every summer, a month, 2 months, whatever my vacation was, anytime I got to go. And I made friends out there, and it was like, well, why do you say cora? And I was like, oh, like a quarter. Like, no se dice así. Why do you say parqueadero? Es estacionamiento. All these
25 cents.
Yeah. Like, so I got what you got, but I got it a lot earlier, right? And then it kind of, it fueled me to want to learn the correct ways of and I don't say it 100%. I don't speak 100% proper Spanish, but I went through that, Mm-hmm. So now as an adult, it's like when I have to choose if I'm Mexican enough, or if I'm Chicano enough, or if I'm not, like, it's hard. And it's just like, well, I'm just me, and I'm who my roots are, and I'm trying to do right by where I'm at and who I am and who I feel that I am.
No, and I applaud you for that. The way I look at it is more like you said, okay, Chicanos, lowrider dudes with like their little hair clips on their finger, and they put them like that. But no, I'm Chicano too. That's not all Chicanos. It's like saying todos los Mexicanos, they use sombreros and boots. Yeah. No, that's not correct. Just because there's some Chicanos that are into lowriders and into oldies, I'm not into oldies. I mean, I like some oldies, but I'd rather listen to some rock and to some hip hop and to some ballads and to some country. Oldies is like way down at the bottom of the list. No offense. If you like it, great. But a Chicano is not just lowriders dressing like a cholo and listening to oldies. A Chicano is somebody who can be a lawyer that likes country music. It can be somebody that plays music and doesn't play oldies. It can be somebody that is a teacher. It can be somebody that likes to surf. There's Mexicans that surf. There's Puerto Ricans that play soccer. Not all Puerto Ricans play baseball.
Right.
You know, so we need to, in order to break that mold, you need to stand up and say, I'm Chicano. Why aren't you like that? Because not all of us do that.
But
That's why.
That mold was already broken in the 60s. Remember in the late 60s? The Chicano movement.
But I don't think it's really
the
broken.
Chicano movement was not, you didn't see lowriders
I got
in there.
you. Yeah.
The Chicano movement was based on a lot of Chicanos who were politicians or who wanted to be politicians.
And it was also assimilated by the worker, the field workers,
the farmers,
activists, the
Yeah.
United Farm Workers,
Right,
lawyers,
So yeah,
they
you're
considered themselves Chicanos.
right.
You know?
So yeah, most definitely. But
college students.
But I think there's a couple of years, I don't know, 20 years till now, there's been kind of a resurgence. And when you go to these Chicano events, they do show a lot of like the lowrider and the gorrita fedoras like
See,
this
I
and
think,
all that. But,
and that's why I brought that question up, is because like a lot of these festivals and a lot of these events
But if
are
we go-
geared towards that.
but if we go and we don't reflect that, but we are Chicanos, then we're changing the narrative.
Right.
Then we're changing the imagery. Then we're changing the stereotype that people have in their minds.
And that's why this
No.
conversation stemmed with us, because we have been hearing that term, right, a lot, and Gil kind of trying to find his identity in like, you know, with his culture, and me, myself, and things like that. But we were seeing, right, okay, the lowrider, the events, and, you know, things like that. And like we were saying, we like rockabilly, we like psychobilly, we like ska, we like, so we're Chicanos in a sense that don't only listen to old, you know, oldies. We're Chicanos, like you were saying earlier, like, and that's exactly why this conversation stemmed for us, because we were here thinking like, well, we're not just cholos and cholas and lowriders, like we're way more than that.
And that's another reason why I don't use Chicano with a CH. I use it with an X. It's the new generation, baby. This is a new thing. This is the new narrative. You know, and also another reason is because, like Malcolm X, right? Why did he use an X? Because he didn't know where his ancestry came from, right? Same thing with me. I mean, I know I took some DNA, but I don't really know exactly where my native lineage comes from. You know, my European name, I have it, and you know, and I use it legally. It's on my driver's license, but it's not my real name. That last name is a European person's name that enslaved my people. My real last name is Ramirez. Okay? Where does Ramirez come from? Somebody named Ramiro. And the people that he owned became property of the Ramirez.
Oh.
I'm not anyone's property. So I'm not going to use that unless I have to.
Now you're CPAC.
Now I'm CPAC. I'm Cipactli and Nezahualcóyotl, right? Nezahualcóyotl is the city where I was born. Ciudad Neza en el Estado de México, right? And Cipactli is I was born under that year of the lizard, Cipactli. So that's why I used that. That's why it's my name, right? So, yeah, I mean, I think these are very important conversations to have because it pushes people to think about exactly how they're identifying and why they identify.
Why is this important? Like, because I can say like, what does it matter? Like where I'm from? Like what?
Sure
I'm here right now. Like what? Does it matter? Like where it comes from?
Of course it matters. It matters when a European person tells you to go back to your country, but you don't even know your history. You're going to be like, damn, he told me to go back to Mexico. Maybe he's right. Fool, this is your land. Your people were here before his people.
It blew my mind how large Mexico was before the 13 colonies
I'm
coming
going
western.
beyond that.
I know.
You know?
Yeah. Right.
This is our land.
Right.
I mean, how would it look if I went to Europe and took over England and then told all the people there, blue-eyed people, to get the hell out and go to their country?
Right.
That is their land. That's where those people, those humans, developed. They developed in the British Isles, Anglo-Saxons. So that's why it's important for us to know where we're from.
There's like
and how to
almost different
identify.
humans back then too.
Well,
If you want to go back far enough.
if we go back far enough, they, we came out of Africa, all of us, right?
Right.
The southern part of Africa.
Mm-hmm. Southeast.
But
I'm
those
2%
were-
African.
yeah, I'm 4%.
Oh.
So right, we're Homo sapiens.
Mm-hmm.
But did you know that there's another branch, right?
Mm-hmm.
What's that branch? No, the other branch, the
The caveman, Neanderthal.
Neanderthal.
Neanderthals.
Yeah. They're
And where did the Neanderthals live? Europe.
yeah.
Most Europeans have Neanderthal DNA in them.
Yeah,
And-
I was watching a video the other day, and the guy that was like teaching, I was been watching these weird classes on YouTube, and he was saying that he was like 2%. He wasn't South African like most of us are. He was like 2% Neanderthal, which was wild to me to hear
Right.
that from somebody.
Right. And at one point, the Homo sapiens went into Europe, and at one point, they did, mix with the Neanderthals to some degree, but because the remnants are there.
At one time, there's like I think over a span of a few million years, there has been 13 to 14 different kinds of humans.
Yeah.
Besides Homo sapiens. So there's Homo sapiens and then 12 other, like a dozen different forms of humans. Isn't that wild?
Yeah. I mean, it's not hard to believe. I mean, look at all the different species that are on this planet.
Right.
So yeah, it's viable and it's true.
There's these like small ones that were like 3 feet.
3 feet. We were seeing each other.
Yeah.
Like, my
Pygmy ones?
people.
Yeah.
Like,
Well,
Amber's people.
In Africa has the largest diversity of humans because they have the tallest people there.
Mhm.
They also
And
have
the
the
short,
shortest.
yeah.
They have the darkest people there, and they have the lightest. I mean, it's crazy, but that's because that's the cradle of life. That's where we all came from. So we all have genetics from them.
Yeah.
How about
It's crazy.
The pinguillos?
Yeah, look at the pinguillos too.
I wanna touch on one more subject before we actually talk about you guys' band and all that.
Oh, we have a band.
I mean, like, yeah, I was like,
You guys are in a band?
You
We're
guys
in a
aren't
band, dude.
I thought we were talking
Talk
about
music.
Mexican history
You
today.
guys are historians.
Chapulín,
on
Colorado.
top of that. But it's always something that I always think about, and I know that's something, Carol, that I've like mentioned to you. So like earlier when we were when you first got here, right? And then we asked, like, we were talking about you guys' names, and we were practicing your names, right? And then you kind of mentioned, you're like, I'm not a stickler for, if you can't pronounce it or things like that. But I feel like pronouncing people's names the way that they are, and I understand not everyone's tongue can roll off the same or anything like that, but I feel like it's really important. And do you feel like it's like, because you said like it was kind of like one of those things, and the only reason I bring this up is because when I go get my nails done, right, at a nail shop, predominantly Vietnamese ladies, I like to talk. So everywhere I've gone, I've noticed that their names are like Amy or Anne, these like very simple names. And I'm just like, no.
Do you know those aren't the real names?
No,
right?
yeah. I know. So that's what I was saying. Like, but like when I first realized, like, wait, like I was like, no, there's no way that this is their name, So I befriended one of the ladies, and I was like, how do I ask her, like, what's your actual name, right? Without being rude. Like I didn't know how to say, like. So anyways, it came up in conversation. She told me her name, and it was beautiful. And that's when we started conversating on how everyone's name was not what their nail tech name was, right? And I was just thinking, like, how sad it is that they come to this country, or we come to this country, and we have to put a name or a nickname that's easy for someone, right? And by us making it easy for someone, they're never gonna learn how to actually pronounce the way that we need it or that we want it to be pronounced. Do you feel that or no?
I used to, but I'll tell you this. I mean, things are changing. Things are changing drastically. It might look like things are taking a while to change, but things are changing. For example, my parents named me Paul, Paul, because my dad already knew that he wanted to immigrate to the United States. And he said, I wanted you to have a name that's going to be assimilated and it would be easier for you. Why would I name you Jose or Juan or Ricardo when we're not in Mexico? My dad was like, that doesn't make any sense. If we're going to this country, you need to be part of that country and be assimilated. And I'm not going to lie. I mean, it was easy going to school and people, the teachers were all Europeans and they call me Paul, and it's easy instead of Ricardo, Joaquin, Jesus,
or my dad's Humberto.
Humberto, and they always, I think some of them, looking back, I think they were a little prejudiced because I remember I had a friend, his last name was Vasquez, and I remember we got in trouble, and the teacher's like, okay, Mr. Vasquez, like, it's Vasquez. Why are you saying Vasquez? But he did it on purpose, but, I think we're getting there to where people, without you being too much of a stickler for, hey, pronounce my name right, man. Like it's like this. They're doing it on their own more now than ever. And they'll even tell you, like, oh, did I do it right? I don't, I think that's the important thing. Some people, that have never come across Indigenous names will have a difficult time pronouncing it. And it's kind of also, I think, rude of me to expect them to pronounce something that their tongue has no experience pronouncing. Quetzalcoatl. Like, they're going to have a very difficult time doing it. If they're trying and they keep apologizing and they're like, I'm so sorry, I respect that. And I mean, there's a lot of words that we don't even pronounce correctly nowadays. I mean, like I said, if we're going to be stickler about things, Mexico that's not the name of the country.
Yeah.
It's Mexico. Why are we pronouncing it Mexico? Because the Spanish couldn't pronounce Mexico and now we all pronounce Mexico? Then let's stop pronouncing it and let's all pronounce it correctly. Mexico.
There's some people that say Mexico.
Right. And there's some people that are...
Have you heard that? I've heard that.
Yeah.
Mexico.
And I've heard some people say that are not Hispanic. I will say this. Mm-hmm. They pronounce it Mexico. Like,
with an
you
S?
Mexican? You Mexican?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
Right.
So
similar to what I was saying.
Okay. So, but I'm saying, like, that's the time when we educate these people. Yeah. I've been in a situation where, like, some dude is like talking to me and I was like, that's not even the way it's pronounced. I educated the dudes. If we're really going to be talking about it, it's Mexico. And a lot of people, sometimes you'd be surprised, and it's happened to me from my experience. I'm only speaking from my experience. When I've met some people that come across like, I'm really Mexican, and they try to tell me like, you I don't think you're that Mexican because you don't like this music or that. Or like, why do I need to like that music to show my Mexican side? Why? Because I don't fit in your stereotype? That does not make me Mexican? That sounds ridiculous.
Yeah, but then
I've tested them. Okay, let's do the test. You say you're more Mexican than me because you listen to banda music, right? And I told you I don't like banda music. So you're saying you're more Mexican than me because of that. Okay, so when is Mexican Independence Day? And the first thing they always say, Cinco de Mayo. So you're telling me that you're more Mexican than me, but you don't even know Mexican independence. Okay, let's go to the next question. What does Mexico mean? What's the meaning of the word Mexico? No sé. Well, you're more Mexican than I am. You should know. Oh, the banda music doesn't teach you that, huh?
Well, a lot of those people too. Me personally, I have ran into people who look really
Indigenous?
from Mexico, and they tell me, no, don't say I'm Indian. Don't say I'm Indian.
Oh, yeah.
They're like ashamed of it.
They are.
What?
Mexico is one of the most racist countries in the world.
Jeez.
It is. They don't
Really?
want to admit it. They always get offended, but it's the truth. And I'll tell you why it's the truth. I had a friend that once told me, "Hey, how is it that you always have like girls with you?" It's before I got married. You always have different girls with you. You're short, you're black, and you're bald. And I told him, "What does being short, dark, my skin color, and bald have to do with anything?" Well, yeah, you're dark, and what does that have to do with anything?
Yeah.
Well, because why are you so dark? And like he couldn't get off of that, and I'm like, that kind of mentality is why Mexicans and the Mexican government can tell the world that they're not racist, but the people that are worst off in Mexico are the real Mexicans, the natives, that are even darker than I am. Yeah. They say that they're proud of their culture, that they're proud of their temples, that they're proud of their Mexica ancestry, but the real people that are native in that country are treated the worst. Yeah. And the word Indio is like calling them nigger.
Yeah.
Pretty much.
I was going to reference something that I had seen online a few years ago, and it said, in Mexico no hay racismo. In Mexico, there's no racism. And then you scroll down, and then it says, mira este pinche indio. And so it was like saying like pretty much like, oh, look at this damn indigenous,
it's like using the N-word.
Yeah.
Because
So
the Mexicans will be like, hasta pa allá, pinche indio, pata rajada, pinche indio.
or
Like,
even the
it's
term like Oaxaquito, or like
Very
the way that
offensive.
Really?
very offensive.
I said that
It's-
today.
But you didn't he didn't know in what context, because
didn't.
I've been teaching him of
We
like
we were let me tell you the story. We were coming back from we were crossing, right? We were crossing from Tijuana to
Oh, snap.
San Diego, and Amber was telling me about the story of how what was it, like these Mexican women with the
it was a documentary that came out a while back, kind of highlighting like Oaxacan culture of people that come from they leave Oaxaca to come and work over here, and it was just kind of saying how in borders you don't really see men, right? You don't see people from Oaxaca, like men from Oaxaca, asking for money or things like that. It's mostly the women. So they highlighted, I mean, obviously it's not everybody, but this was a case that they had seen, and they followed them, and they saw that like the men were at home getting drunk, gambling, and the women were taking money back and things like that.
and then the children, they were
Yeah.
giving children
So
the
I would-
NyQuil to keep them asleep on
So
the
it-
women's back,
And
something
again,
like that, right?
we don't know if it's everyone, right?
don't
But
know.
this is what we had seen. So I
Right.
was educating him on how they're kind of seen below others here within Mexico, and I was telling them like one of the terms is like Oaxaquita, or like Oaxaco, or people use those terms to insult people.
Yeah.
So that's what I was trying to educate him on. And I don't know, today we weren't talking about it. I think he was just thinking of it.
Right.
And then he said the word, and then my brother-in-law turned, and then he's like,
Yeah,
what?
like it blew my mind because I thought it was just
like calling them from that region.
Right.
yeah, calling them from that region, and in my mind, I'm learning Spanish. Calling somebody from that region, but also maybe because she was short, and she was like a little person from a little woman from that specific
A customer
region
came
in
and
Mexico.
said she was from Oaxaca. That's
Oh,
right.
okay.
That's why.
Yeah,
that's why I said
and then I said Oaxaquita, and then her brother-in-law like turned like I said something blasphemous.
But
It
was
blew my
blasphemous.
mind.
Right. I mean, there's a lot of things that aren't, in my opinion. I will tell you.
I said
that
it out of ignorance.
No, you didn't. I don't think you should feel bad at all. I think that language is very powerful, and if you don't say it with malice, it's because you're not saying it with malice. but people make certain words evil. People take that and
Words, symbols, people,
right. So I mean,
everything.
nothing in the language has value unless you give it that value.
100, absolutely, I agree with you.
But when you're in that context, like right, if I'm surrounded by a lot of African brothers and sisters, and all of a sudden I'm dropping N bombs everywhere. Let's say that I'm an alien, right? I don't know anything. They're still gonna get offended. Dude, what the hell are you doing?
Yeah.
And then they're gonna educate me. Dude, don't be saying that. That's not proper for you to say that, right? So that's what happened to you. You didn't say it in any disrespectful way, but because you're not part of that life.
Right.
Oh,
Is that me?
Is that you? Not me.
that was the neighbor.
Okay.
What happened? Hopefully she slipped on a banana and hit her face on the. Anyways, but I mean, I'm saying that out of. It was ignorant for me to say it because I didn't know any better.
Right. Right.
And now I know better. I am much smarter than I was earlier today because after hearing that, then I won't say it again in that type of context. I think that's what needs to happen. You need to acknowledge that you're wrong. In my case, I was wrong for saying that in that
but
context.
you learned.
But I learned, and now I know it's not a very nice thing to say, and I won't use it again.
And unfortunately, those people that are bigots and racists and people who have prejudice in their soul, they've made that word bad.
Right.
But
how is it bad? Because we as a group
because you
decided
use it in that context. People have used it in that context. So, for example, many years ago, let's say you have a girlfriend,
Mhm.
and let's say she's African. Te quiero mucho, mi negrita. I love you a lot, my negrita. Didn't mean anything. But somebody that is not from that culture, that hears that, why are you calling her that?
Mhm.
That's racist. Why are you calling it mi gordito? Ven pa acá, mi gordito. Come here, my fat love or whatever. Somebody might find that offensive.
Right.
Yeah, your body shaming them.
You're body shaming them. You're talking about their color of their skin. But the thing is, we've gotten to a point right in society, which is in a way it's good, but in a way it's bad, because you can't be yourself. Like, I don't have any hair, and my friends sometimes call me pelon. Why is that wrong? Why is that wrong? Hey, pelon, come here.
I don't think it's wrong. Do you think it's wrong?
I don't think it's wrong, but somebody does. I guarantee you. I guarantee it. So we've gotten in a situation where it's kind of like, you got to watch what you say, because these words that really mean nothing are now heavy with the burden of some kind of inequality. So that's where we're at. That's why I told you, I don't think you did anything wrong. I mean, they told you, hey, you don't do that because these people might get offended. That's fine. But you didn't know.
Yeah. And it's not
just
like
the word.
Right. And it's not like I'm going to walk up to this lady and say, hey, Joaquita, whatever.
Right.
But there are people that would.
Yeah,
Yeah,
there are people
I
that
wouldn't do that.
unfortunately, there are people that that can't look at me and be like, pinche pelón.
Yeah.
At that point, they're doing it derogatory.
Right. Yeah.
So,
If
like, there's one thing, mi gordita,
Mhm.
mira esa gorda. Like, now you're doing it derogatory. It's a lot, the influx of the word and how you're posing the word. But some people, they jump the gun. I think they're like, just because you said it, period. And I think we're losing that in language. The context of how it's being used is important, and a lot of people, they just can't wait to cut you down.
You're right. But that's been going on for like the last 30 years,
Yeah, it's been a slow
politically
progression.
correct. If you say something, because almost everything's offensive now to everybody. If you say something offensive, everyone condemns you nowadays, and it seems like in all the world, but especially in the U.S., if you say something wrong, there's like no forgiveness. There's no like, hey, he made a mistake. They condemn you and they keep on you and tell
they
you.
crucify you.
Yeah.
Yeah.
They're even going back as far as even like during, like, I get the Me Too movement. That was obviously that was one thing, right? But like in certain instances, like people were losing their jobs over things that they said like decades ago, 5 years ago, on a Facebook post or on like a Twitter post. And it wasn't even something that was within the 5 years or within the year. I think that was crazy. Like, I get it. Maybe certain situations it that it seems that it was plausible, but I mean that doing that now is just, it's crazy. Can't say anything.
Yeah,
You're gonna condemn me for saying something on Twitter on a dumb phone like 10 years ago. I'm not even the same person from 10 years ago.
Right. That's true. But the thing is, people now, they feel that if you said something, maybe that's still you. And in some cases, I think it probably is the case. And in some cases, I think it probably isn't.
Right.
People change and some people don't. That's the truth. I know people that I had to let go in my life because the way they were living their life is not the way I wanted to live my life. It's not that kind of ambiance that I wanted to be around. Right? And they're probably still living that same way. Right? So, but the thing is how are people going to know if they don't know you personally? Yeah. So it always is that situation is always very tricky. But I think as long as you are able to explain yourself thoroughly about what you meant,
right, through conversation,
that should be enough. But unfortunately, there are people that won't let you have that conversation. They won't let you say your piece.
They never liked you in the beginning.
They never liked you in the first place.
They never liked you in the first place. And they were looking for one thing just to get you out of there. Right?
Yeah.
Could be.
Yeah, like I always tell my wife, like, not everybody's racist. I believe that there are people that are racist still. Of course. There's just like there's every shape and color and size and height. There's people that are racist. But sometimes people, they're the way they are, not because they're racist, just because they're assholes.
Yeah.
They just don't like you. It have nothing to do with how you look or what your ethnicity is. They're just assholes.
But even like,
like
kind of circling back where you were saying like racism in Mexico, like I'm not going to sit here and call my grandma racist because I don't think my grandma was a racist, right? But my grandma, I remember some of her cariños, like some of the way that she like showed her love to me. She would grab my hand and she would say, "Oh, you're so beautiful. You're so white." Mm-hmm. She would say, "Qué bonita estás. Bien blanca." She would say, "Bien blanca."
Bien güerita.
And as a kid, I didn't understand that. Like, I didn't understand what she was saying. I just thought like, oh, my grandma loves me. Like, yeah, I'm white. Like, and now as an adult, I'm like, holy shit. Like she was
she
like,
came from a different era.
Yeah, and that's what I was saying. Like, I can't sit here and condemn and be like, my grandma was. I don't want to think that she was. She loved everybody, but she came and was taught that the white skin was beautiful. That it was porcelain. That it was like the closest to like a doll, something to perfection,
close to godliness.
Yeah, and that's what she was taught, was that skin was beautiful, and I think that's, again, like I'm saying, my grandma wasn't a racist, or I don't want to believe that she wasn't, right? But that's what she was taught. That's what was instilled in her, and she didn't think twice about thinking of what she said. She just said what she felt.
I think two things are going on. It's like conditioning of like your environment, and then time. Mm-hmm. Like if you're conditioned for a large amount of your life, then of course you're gonna think in terms of your environment. Like I'm pretty sure your grandma your grandma's mom told her that, and her grandma's mom told her that, and her grandma's grandpa's
Oh, and you better
mom
not be
told her
dating
that.
that guy that looks like an Indio over there.
Yeah.
You better not be dating that Moreno over there.
Right. But I feel like that has it changed, like in the terms of Mexican American?
I think
maybe.
I think it's changing. I'm not gonna say it's changed.
Right.
You know, because there are, like I said, I mean, it would be it just wouldn't be conducive to assume that racism and bigotry and prejudice doesn't exist, because it does.
And I've seen it firsthand. Like my mom's sister was married to a black man, like from here, and it was those little like microaggressions, right, that we call now. It was like, I remember somebody once saying, I llegó el negro, and then she like grabbed her purse, like held it tight, like here's
Right.
the black man, and held it tight. And this was in Mexico, because we would go to parties over there. And then once her kids got older, my cousins, we would go places, and this is like Ensenada, you're not even deep in. We would go places, and people would stop them and be like, "Do you play basketball? Can you play basketball?"
Yeah.
And the kids were like, "Yeah, I could play basketball, but like, whoa, what is it to you?" Like, type of thing. And it was like this like constant, like they were an anomaly in this country. Like,
That's
they had
so
never
hilarious.
seen a black person in their life. you know?
I think it's really funny because what you said right now, that happened to me too. Like, I remember in elementary school, like I grew up in South Central, and there was a lot of black kids, a lot of African kids growing there. And when we played soccer, they would always fight for me. I want him because he's Mexican. He knows how to play soccer. It's so, but when kids do it, I give them a pass because they're kids. They don't know any better. But when you're talking about people that are, went to college or they have more experience in life, I mean, those little things that should be, you should have rectified that and really understood that that's just not the way the world works.
Yeah, absolutely.
Or they watch too many novellas because
I'm trying to give you the signal that the third camera turned off.
Oh, it did?
Yes, but keep talking.
no, I don't. Sometimes I don't want to keep bringing up racism, but I mean it's getting better. But the novellas, 90% are European people.
Yeah.
Oh, of course. Like if you watch Telemundo and all
the
that,
help was
that's all the people with blue eyes, green eyes, and the lighter skinned Hispanics.
And I'm not gonna lie, like when we got Gil's ancestry back, right? Because I haven't done it myself. Yeah. Well, I haven't done it myself, right? But my parents have done it, my grandmother's done it, and my mother's like 56%, European, and I'm like,
wow.
like I already freaking know where I'm going with this, But I had this sense of when I seen his DNA and how high of a percentage he was Indigenous, I kind of was like, how? Like, why? Like, you don't even speak Spanish. You don't even, like, I had this sense of like, I don't want to say it angered me because it didn't. I was grateful that he found out, we found out more of him. But I had this feeling of like damn you, like here I am, like, I know somewhat of my history. I speak good Spanish and all of this, and I'm over here like.
But I think that
60%,
right. But that at least on I think it's working now.
Yeah, we got it. Good.
On my portion of that, like I felt bad kind of for like a second. I did. But then it propelled me to learn more about where I came from.
Yeah.
And it feels awesome. Like I think that's why I'm so super, and I think just my trajectory of learning things and taking on new information this has changed so much, because I was super into like the American history regardless, right? Before I learned this piece of information about me being 80% to 65%, Indigenous Mexican. Once I found that out, I was like, fuck American history. Like I can learn more about like where I came from, my ancestors. There's a whole new fucking world out there besides, because I love the American history in the 1960s and 70s. I was all about that since I was the age of 12 and on, learning about the 60s, all the hippie movement. But lo and behold, there's another fucking hippie movement. There's the Chicano movement that I'm more in tune with, that I can say those were my people. Like I can, like all the hippies in the, San Francisco in the 1967, the Summer of Love.
Ashbury and Height.
Yeah, Hyde and Ashbury. I love that, but I can't. There was a disconnect because they don't look like me. They're tall, white men.
They're
skinny,
Europeans.
and they're Europeans. They weren't.
That's another
Mexicans.
Thing. That's another thing I want to point out. Everywhere I go, even in our when we have shows,
Mm-hmm.
I always try to say it. Don't call people white because there's nobody white. I never seen anybody this color white. They don't exist. White people don't exist, and I never seen anybody this color. There's no black people.
Right.
No.
I call them Africans because that's where they come from.
Yeah.
And I call Europeans because that's where they come from. And if they get offended, then they're the ones with the problem. Because,
Okay, I get
like
that.
I said, they're Europe. For example, when you pick up a census or something that you have to fill out and it says race, ethnicity,
Yeah.
it says, it says Hispanic, African American, Asian American.
Isn't Hispanic like
What?
more like centralized to Spain being
Yes.
Spaniard?
Well, Hispanic comes from the word Española. Española is the island in the Caribbean that is inhabited by Haitians and Dominicans. That's where Christopher Columbus landed, Hispaniola. And they
Hispaniola.
call everybody Hispanic.
There's a Hispaniola in Spain too.
Yeah,
Really?
I'm sure. But anyways, that's what I'm saying. Don't
At your
call
shows.
people white. They don't exist.
I had
They
a
don't exist.
shit attack. I'm gonna say it on here.
Oh no.
When
Oh,
some
no.
guy,
Right now.
some guy came to when I lived at my parents, and he came to do the census, and it was like COVID time, so I didn't open the door. We have like a little window, so I opened the window, and he's like, "Can I ask you a few questions?" And I was like, "Sure." So one of the questions was, like, what ethnicity are you, right? And was it ethnicity or race? No, what race am I? Yeah, what race what race was I? So I'm like, oh, I don't know, I'm Latino, I'm Mexican. He's like, no, that's not a race. And I'm like, wait, what?
Right.
And then, and I was like,
Wait,
wait,
hold on,
huh?
what?
And I'm like, so what else is there? Can you read off what you have? Like, because I'm over here like thinking like, okay, well, I'm wrong. So what, and he's like telling me like this, and that. And he's like, can I tell you something? I'm like, yeah. And he's like, you'd be under like white Caucasian. And I'm like, wait, what? And he's like, yeah. And I was like, no,
Damn.
like you're wrong. Right?
I like the way she says it. Wait, what?
Yeah, I was like, wait, no. And he's like, yeah, I'm sorry. And then he's like, so I'm going to check that off. And I was like, okay. And I was like, are you sure I don't have another option? And he's like, I'm sure you don't have another option. And
What was this guy's deal? Was he European?
No, he was.
Yeah, he got
He
it.
was Latino.
Oh, he was?
Yeah,
You
he
should have
did.
asked him.
Well, he
My
was
question.
White. He didn't have an ethnicity. He was white Latino.
Yeah, my question would have been like, dude, what are you putting on yours? Like, what's your
Well,
what's
that's
your
why
take
he
on
said
this?
he's like, this is all I can offer you was Caucasian,
Yeah.
right?
Unfortunately, he sounded like he was ignorant, right? He didn't know, so he was just going by what he was taught,
Right.
Yeah, and what was on the
ballot
paper,
thing?
the ballot thing.
right? So I mean, if I'm
That is rigged. If that wasn't a
It is
rigged
rigged.
moment in history of you,
Of my history,
of,
When he-
I was so
of
mad.
paramount history, that is wrong.
when he walked away, he was like, "Got her."
Got
Yeah.
her.
That you'd be surprised at. I ran into this personally. How many, for instance, Mexicans don't know the difference between, when I've had a group of people who were clearly Mexican. I said they called themselves Latin. I go, well, Latin's from Europe.
Mm-hmm.
I said, and then they laughed like I was wrong.
But it's
You know?
true.
Yeah, but also too, and I know you touched on it a while ago. It's like, why does all this matter? We all have red blood. That's true. I can only speak for myself. Why being almost half Indigenous is important to me is, one, grades 4 through 6, I had Mr. McCormack, who was a Scotsman, tell me about my background. He was so interested in Mexican heritage for those 3 years. He got me to do the dances, the hat dances, for 3 years straight. Even when I wanted to quit, he brought me back. He was really interested in our culture, and he was
It's sad when
Scotsman.
people from other ethnicities or background know more about your culture than you do.
And one last thing too is it's important to me because I read a lot of Native American history, whether it's from Argentina all the way to Canada, and it is special because in some cases they try to wipe Indigenous people out, commit genocide. Okay, not all of them were bad that came over here, but I think, a good majority were. They put them on reservations. They tried to wipe them out. They tried to wipe out their language, make them cut their hair. The Spaniards burned a lot of codexes. And it's ironic that some of the priests tried to save those, and they wanted to learn more than the soldiers, the generals from the Spanish side just wanted to wipe it all out.
Fuckers.
Yeah.
You guys are in a band.
I know.
We're in a band named Quetzalcoatl, and we're right back to where we started. Why is it named Quetzalcoatl? Can you talk about Quetzalcoatl? We're right back where we started. Real quick, I just want to say that Quetzalcoatl is an important entity of our culture as Chicanos, and you'd be surprised how many people don't know who or what Quetzalcoatl is. And it was our way of bringing it to our culture and making people question, what the hell is that? Where'd you get that name from? That's how you get them. You hook them, then even if they don't ask you anymore, they look it up. They go to Google, they look it up, they find out. When we got the band together, it was important for us to make a band that is not fucking oldies. No, I'm just kidding. Everybody who likes oldies, it's all good. It was something where we wanted to mix rock music with Mesoamerican beats and Latin rhythms, right? I didn't hear that in the radio. Like, I put it on K-Rock. There's nothing like that. It's all European rock with African influences, ska, reggae, rock. Where's the Latin? Nothing. Like, I guess we don't listen to rock. I guess we only listen to mariachi, salsa, merengue, norteño. We don't listen to rock, I guess. We don't exist in the Anglo-American market. And we don't exist in the African-American market. We don't.
So what's the distinguish between the different rock beats? Like, how do you differentiate that? Like, is it a lot of it percussion? Is it
you want to take this drummer?
Is it string instruments? Because I feel like it's a lot of percussion that's very different. The rhythms.
I'll begin with the African influence, which blues is from, jazz, especially gospel, because gospel, I think it was gospel, then blues or Zydeco. All that has, African influences. So does Brazilian music, Cuban, all the so-called Latin countries have a lot of African influence.
Right. Like cumbia is African.
Yeah. But then too, you have Zydeco, which was influenced by French and African, and then, but rock beats, a lot of rock beats. I like a lot of hard rock and metal. You can trace that back to African beats. You really can. Funk, that all, and blues is really a lot were influenced heavy metal. A lot of people may not even realize that, but blues influenced rock and metal to a big, big degree. And I don't know. I don't know it all, but I know a lot of that comes from Africa. Especially like gospel. The gospel music started there, and that's where a lot of those blues guys and jazz guys came. But jazz does have some influences from Europe too. But definitely, in my opinion, the African beats have that in there. And then you're saying there's funk beats, there's Zydeco, there's Cajun, there's reggae, which has a big blues influence also. But see, then that goes back to a lot of African music is based on 12/8 notes, the blues, the shuffle.
Right.
And that's a big, big part of it. That's why the blues is so important. And jazz too, a basic jazz ride is a shuffle,
Yeah, we try to incorporate all of that, but the main inspiration for me was to try to include some. I would go to see Aztec dancers and hear the beats, and I was like, I've never heard a band try to do some beats like that with music. Like when people think Mexican music or Spanish music, they don't think that, that's what they should really think of.
They think accordions and mariachi
and all that stuff.
Trumpets.
And mariachi, I mean, we've made it our own, but it really came from France. It's European. Norteño is European too.
It's like it has a little bit of German too,
Yeah,
because of the accordion influence.
That's
is
what I'm
German.
saying. The Norteño is German.
Mhm.
It's polka. We've made it our own, but that's where it came from. And that's fine. But I'm saying, like, let's try to do something more different. And we started doing some like indigenous beats and just adding music to it. Like, why can't we make music like that? This is our music. Get indigenous beats, put them in there. Yeah, sure, we mix it with hip hop, with reggae, with soul, with a lot of stuff. But the main focus was that.
How did you begin to start like looking into like the different rhythms of that type of music?
Like I said, like seeing Aztec dancers and knowing those beats, and I felt something. I always felt something. And I thought, wouldn't it be cool to do something like that? Make a band that's bilingual, that talks about Mexica history, that has beats that have that Mexica language, Nahuatl and Spanish and English for our people, And when I started playing the guitar to write the music, I started just in my head hearing the beats. So when I got together with him, I was like, he kind of felt it too. I think you felt like that, like Aztec stuff, right?
Yeah. I was very interested a long time ago in '94. Also, way back then, I wanted to put together a kind of a hard rock band called Jaguar Warrior, which was based on the Jaguar Warrior from Mexico. But what you said about where we got those rhythms, and for me, a lot of it came from Africa. I don't know why, but ever since I was like in third grade, I've always was like really interested whenever I would hear African drumming. I just like, wow, this is powerful stuff.
He has brought some beats that aren't Mesoamerican, and we just build around it, And for me, when I write something, I usually write it in 3/4 time. Like instead of a lot of music is like 1 2 1 2 3 4, right? 1 2 3 4 1 2 3 4, right? But more Native American stuff or Mexica stuff is not that. It's more like a 1 2 1 2 3 1 2 3 1 2 3 1 2 3. So just write instruments, guitars or keyboards around that beat. Why do you always have to do the? That's boring.
Yeah.
It's been done to death. Like blues has it, rock has it, hip hop has it. That's 1 2 3 4 1 2 3. It's same thing. So that's why a lot of our songs are 3/4. 1 2 3 1 2 3.
with the accent on the third, right?
1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2,
Oh, on the
3,
one.
1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3. Right. And it gives you that feeling of,
It does.
for
it
me,
pumps you up. Like,
it
it's like,
gives me the feeling that I'm in the jungle and I'm riding a fucking
Ooh.
jaguar.
yeah.
Fuck
And I'm
yeah.
fucking throwing a spear through a Spanish person. I mean, I've never mind. And I'm throwing a spear in the middle of nowhere.
That's okay.
You know?
You can say it.
So, I mean, that's what I want people to feel when they come to our shows, to be uplifted and be like, fuck, close your eyes. And you're like, I feel like I'm a fucking Olmec, an Aztec, a fucking Zapoteco.
There's
You know?
there's a sense of empowerment too with like what you guys were saying about what Gil's question was, like, why is it important to know this, right? Why is it important to know where we're coming from? Why is it important to have these influences, like even in your music? It's like how are we to deny that we are so close, like so closely still embedded within our culture and all those things and vibrations and feelings, when knowing history or even listening to a simple beat like that runs through your body and gives you this like sense of like empowerment. It empowers you. That's how I feel when I learn things of history, or when I listen to music, or when I see matachinas dancing. Like, it's empowering, right? Is that what you guys kind of want to portray too, is like that empowerment?
Yeah, I want people to wake up. Like, I feel, I'm gonna drop the mic real quick. I'm gonna say something people might not like, but this is how I feel. You say, in general, not just some people say like, oh, I'm with the native. I feel that all this, but you're listening to hip hop, but you're listening to rock, but you're listening to reggae. And I don't have anything against it. I love music. That's why I'm a musician. But that's not our music. That's not. So it's time for us to make our own music. It's time for us to reach to our ancestors, get inspired. And yeah, if you play keyboard, if you rap, or if you sing, or if you play guitar, combine it with your ancestral beats and rhythms. Why am I gonna be a Rastafari and grow dreadlocks and put one of those things on and be? That's not my people. I don't have no problem with it. That's lovely culture. That's not me though. I'm a Shika. I'm a native. I'm an Aztec. I'm not Rastafari. You know what I'm saying? Like, I believe there's music for everything. I love classical music. I love country. I love R&B. There's a time and a place. But all these other ethnicities and people, they listen to their own shit and they put it in your face and people buy it. And you don't stop for a second and think, why the fuck am I buying this fucking country album or this fucking R&B album when I can buy this fucking album and it's fucking my people, my roots, not fucking oldies and shit. That's not our shit. I want to hear that fucking beat that's from my people. That's not our beat. That's not.
You asked about the music, and part of that is, I think that's interesting to point out, is he uses a conch shell, a big conch shell that the Aztecs used to blow to the four corners, or four east, west, north.
Yeah, we use a lot of instruments too, turtle shells, the conch, a lot of instruments that you wouldn't normally think that you would use in a band. And some people have actually gotten upset about that. Like, oh, that's a sacred instrument. Like, why is it sacred? Because you said it's sacred? Well, because our people is my people too.
Mm-hmm.
Why? Why don't you want us to play it in popular music? Why?
Yeah, that doesn't make sense.
Well, because it's blasphemous. Like, this is only for
Who says
ceremonial.
it's blasphemous,
It's
though?
ceremonial for our people. Only used it
Oh,
in
okay, I see.
ceremonies. Okay, but we're not in those times no more. Are you walking around with a rag in your crotch? You're walking around with pants, right? And shorts.
Pantalones.
Yeah, no, you're not walking around like we say in Spanish con taparrabo.
Mm-hmm.
You're not doing that. It's true. And
Yeah.
those people that, you know, do the Aztec dancing, which I love, a lot of them don't go to work dressed like that.
Yeah.
But also,
do
you
it-
know,
So
I'm sorry.
So all I'm saying is, look, if you want people to experience the beauty of our culture, bring that into the realm of what people know or are like, oh, okay, that's interesting. What is that? And you teach them, and they learn.
That's
But if
what
you don't do it, how are people going to learn? Even our own people will learn. The people that really have no idea or have why is this important or why, then they'll learn. That's how we do it, little by little, and changing the music spectrum by playing something that people are like, this is different.
That's what I was going to say. Exactly, that is someone who doesn't know about the Aztec dancers or the Mexican dancers. If they see someone blowing into a shell that they've maybe seen, or maybe, anyways, in short, it could get them interested in the Mexica heritage. You know, they say, "Hey, what's that?" Oh, well, it's heritage from the Aztec dancers, and then they get interested in that, and they go see Aztec dancers.
I mean, for goodness sake, Korn, they bust out the fucking bagpipes and shit.
Yeah, the bagpipes.
They don't use that in rock, but they do it because it's their culture.
AC/DC did.
Yeah, it's their culture, the European culture. So why don't we bust out our own instruments?
Because it's sacred.
Yeah,
Bust
you're
around.
right. I'm gonna break that shit down.
All
I'm here to break all that shit down.
all the sacred. Well, someone
think
has
about-
to. Like I get their point to where like, oh, that's sacred. We shouldn't touch that stuff. But why?
I mean, remember,
Traditions are. I heard something like way long ago that put it in perspective for me of like traditions, right? Certain traditions. Traditions are just rules that people dead or dead people put into place for control or some shit like that. Oh, I butchered it, but that was the essence of that. Was traditions are just rules made up by people a long time ago. Like, why? I've never, like, I get it. Like, maybe Amber and I had this conversation years ago when we first started dating, because I've lived on my own for more than half my life. And I mean like by myself. Like, I've taken care of myself since I was a very young person. So I didn't really fall into any traditions or like any culture. Like, maybe I did identify as certain things, but then again, like back then, even up until now, like I didn't know how to identify like in certain cultures, certain traditions. Like, I didn't get it. And I've always like why do we have these certain traditions in certain cultures? Like, I just didn't, it didn't faze me. Like when like certain like Easter and Christmas and all that other stuff. Like I didn't get it. Like why do we hold value to certain traditions and certain symbols and certain items? Like, this is good, this is bad. You can eat this on this certain day, but you can't eat that certain thing on this certain day. I didn't get it. I didn't care. Like, I've always questioned, like, why for these type of traditions. Like, because you hold value to them. Is it like that certain person going to your show is saying like what you're doing is like, oh my God, that's blasphemy. Like, we would never do. Okay, so what? It's a piece of shell that you can find on the beach anywhere in this country. Like, doesn't matter, you know? I don't know. I don't know if that was a point, but
no, I get what you're saying. I think ceremonies and traditions do have their place, but
right.
But I think there is a
I'm just
thin
cynic.
line.
I'm a
think there's
cynic old man in
no,
a
like
young
like,
person's
I know
body.
what you're saying. Like, for example, Bruce Lee, when he came over here and he started teaching the pale skins how to do karate, right? The a lot of the traditionalists, Chinese people were like, that's blasphemous. That's our tradition. This is sacred. It's only for us to know. And he's like, why?
Mm-hmm.
Why?
Yeah.
We need to share the beauty of this art with the world, not just with pale skins, with Mexicans, with black people,
Right.
with Asian, whatever.
But I think the fear is, I'm sorry to cut you off, but I think the fear is perverting certain traditions. And I will say one thing that I heard a long time ago about, there was this lady back in like the early 60s called Lady Maria Sabina, and she was a mushroom cultivator back in Mexico. I forgot what state it was.
It was like Michoacan or something.
Yeah, so she was a shaman. She introduced mushrooms in her culture. That was part of her culture. And when like U.S. people, like all the popular people back in the 1960s were going to Mexico and taking these mushrooms, the people in her village did not like her because she was bringing Europeans
Right.
into Mexico, and they were taking these mushrooms and taking them to all over the world.
Right.
Or not all over, but all over the U.S. Like there were certain people in like the eastern side of the United States and the western side of the United States. Timothy Leary was one of them. Ram
Yeah.
Dass was one of them.
Yep.
Going down there. Gordon Wasson, he wrote he wrote an article about her, and that's how like that certain village became popular with the psilocybin mushroom, was because of her like shaman rituals. But they did not like her because
She was opening it up.
She was opening
and
it up.
These people weren't respecting the process.
Right. So I'm stuck in between that because I get that part.
Right.
I
But
100% get it.
Yeah, I get it too. But I think, I have a guitar. The guitar was developed in Africa. Then it was taken to Spain, Europe, and they refined the instrument there. And now I play it. I play it and I respect it because I get music out of that instrument. And I get enjoyment and fulfillment of that instrument. When I pick up the conch, whether it's me or if one day some guy or some woman that's watching this show, their son looks up the band, and then in their band they have a conch and they're jamming and they take out the conch, they're enjoying it.
Yeah.
They're bringing fulfillment. They're not disrespecting anything. They're using an instrument to vocalize
Right.
something in their soul.
You know what really blew people's minds? If you made an electric conch, that would fucking piss. How many
dude,
people would you piss off if you made an electric conch,
Dude,
dude?
it's already loud as it is. Could you imagine if we like make it electric? It'll be
Distorted, dude.
be like Jimi Hendrix. Be crazy.
But I get the tradition thing, and like circling back to what Gil was saying, like when we first got together, like him being on his own the majority of the time, he didn't have that sense of family like I did, right? I grew up
Community, sense
like
of family,
with my family.
sense of
Like to me,
any
my
type of
family
love in
is
general.
everything. Like it was just like I enjoy hanging out with them. I enjoy doing things, and to him, it was something that he couldn't fathom. Like why? Like why are you gonna
Literally.
people,
Why
no,
you want to
it's
spend time with the
true.
people that you lived with for
Yeah.
years?
Right.
Right, and he didn't understand that, and I think that created a lot of friction between us.
It did.
because it was something very near and dear to my heart and who I am and my identity. And for me, it was like, well, if you can't, be
You know where the
okay
door
with
is.
that, then it's not. But what I'm trying to get to with tradition is like what I said earlier. Like I didn't grow up in a religious household. I didn't grow up with religion or anything. But we celebrate Christmas, right? And for some people, they'll be like, okay, well, why do you celebrate Christmas? You're celebrating Christmas for all the wrong reasons, right? And I am celebrating Christmas for all the wrong reasons. But it's become a tradition now to get together, to see people, to express love, to express things, right? So in a way, I do feel that traditions, and especially like some of our traditions, right? Like Mexican traditions, Dia de los Muertos, things like that we celebrate. And others that I can't think on the top of my head, they are special. I think they do become sacred, right? And not for in the way of like you're saying, like people coming and shaming you for using it, but sacred in the way that it keeps a bond. It keeps us together. It keeps us united. It keeps this energy of people coming together and celebrating. Maybe not even the holiday the way that it is, or the celebration that it is, but just the overall essence of being together and being in each other's company.
But we could celebrate that every day.
We can, but
Right.
there's
There's
something
some
a
kind of
little-
magic about, there's a certain day that we're gonna pick for us to get together. You know, like me, I really don't give a rat's ass about Thanksgiving, but my mom and my dad, they celebrate it. The whole family gets together, and I enjoy it. I'm not the dude there that's like, dude, well, did you know that? Like, I don't get into all that. Like, I'm there with my parents, with my siblings, with my wife, with
I wait
family.
for somebody. I'm sitting at the dinner table waiting for somebody to bring up that subject.
I don't do it. I don't do it. I mean, everybody knows. It's funny because everybody knows what I'm thinking, but nobody brings it up, and I don't bring it up either. I just figured, like, you know, my parents aren't going to be here forever, and as long as I'm there sharing, breaking bread with them, that's all that matters, man. Because one day they're going to be gone, and I'm going to yearn for that time to have shared those moments with them.
Yeah, it's just going to be another day to eat and celebrate. It's a holiday, but you can make it whatever you want.
Yeah, I celebrate and I give thanks for being around my family. It has nothing to do with the history.
That's what I said.
Just,
like,
you know,
I don't know the history of Christmas. I don't.
You got about another 2 hours. I can explain to you
No,
about the
no,
pagan
no.
holiday
I'm like-
that is called Christmas.
We've been together for 4 years. I know. I'm just being exaggerated that I don't know
Okay.
that. I know your version of it, but that's.
What about the
the right,
what about
the right version of it?
what about the psychedelic mushroom
I
and Santa
kinda
Claus?
seen-
You know that one?
That I know. Like
The
that-
CIA and Timothy Leary.
Yeah, there we go. See?
But I could see like the Maria Sabina one. Like I get it, right? I get it because it was something that was sacred to them and something that they held near and dear, that they did within themselves,
Yeah.
right? That they felt like this is something that helps us connect with each other. This is something that we value, that we know what the benefit of it is. And then you bring someone in that maybe appreciates it but doesn't appreciate it the way that you do. And there's that sense of like it stings a little. You know, and again, we can't gatekeep everything, but
right.
I can
But
see
you know what stings is them going to different country, going to Brazil, where it's legal, and setting up these huge like hotel getaways to take psilocybin mushrooms, and most of them are like that. I think that's what gets me. Like I get it. Like I get it.
Right.
And without
a European taking churros to Mexico. Like,
yeah, it's exactly that's the same thing.
feel.
But also is without them, like Gordon Wasson and Timothy Leary going there and then bringing them back, like we'll never have the hippie culture that was in the 1960s, right?
Right.
Like we wouldn't have that. We
The
wouldn't have this enlightenment back in the early 60s. That was not just Europeans, but it was
A
kids.
plethora of people.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So I think like yes, it was kind of perverted in a way, but it also enlightened thousands of people in years to come.
Right. And you know, a lot of those drugs, like, you know, they use them in science and in modern medicine because people have different disorders and that is something that helps them. And without that, maybe it would have taken longer for those to be discovered.
But acid and heroin, if you read, it started, I think, in the 50s, where the CIA really did flood the ghettos with a lot of drugs.
Oh, yeah, of course.
They really did.
They're probably doing it right now with fentanyl.
But
As we
and they
speak.
wanted to keep the counterculture, you know, from protesting the Vietnam War. They thought if they could control, they did a lot of experiments with mind control.
Actually,
with drugs.
I think it was Richard Nixon or one of his affiliates when he was when he was in office. One of his affiliates said that that's what they were trying to do with marijuana, was trying to attach marijuana to the Mexicans and heroin to to the African Americans to keep them, put them in jail. That was like the first start of the new what is it called? The new Jim Crow.
Yeah.
In
Oh,
essence.
yeah.
Yeah, I mean, there's been definitely some terrible things that have been done.
Well, there's a movie that I just watched over the weekend. I'm like, I watched by myself. No. And it's on
I was
Netflix.
deep into this
I was
U.S.
trying to make them watch
history.
it.
Hey,
But-
there's 13 different
I know,
humans
I know. But
on that used to be on the planet. Did you know that? No,
I
because I
did.
was watching the videos.
hey, I
And now
studied
now-
anthropology for 2 years, so yes, I did know that.
Now thousands of our listeners know
No,
that
let me tell you
piece
about
of
the
history.
movie though. What I'm getting at, it wasn't a mindless movie. It looked like it was, right? I was like, okay, what is this? So it's called They Cloned Tyrone.
Oh, I've seen that it's on Netflix, huh?
Have you watched it though?
I haven't.
Okay.
Is it cool? Is it great or what?
So it's really good because if you really dive deep into what they're trying to tell you, I don't want to tell you too much, right?
Yeah, don't spoil it.
No, I'm not gonna spoil it. But I mean, what you can see in the trailer is, one of the things they say is like it's in everything, right? And they're like, it's in everything. It's in the food we eat. It's in the music we listen to. It's in the things we drink. So it ties around something of that nature of what you guys are saying. And I'm not giving anything away because that's in the trailer, but it's a really good movie, and I think it's like it gives you perspective of kind of what we're talking about and how, it's still happening within influences of music, of food, of, things like that. So even, I mean, we can even tie it to your music, what you were saying with like, why don't we listen to beats like the ones that you guys do? Why don't we listen to music like that you guys make, right? There might be something that they don't want us to hear that's going to empower us and fuel us to even go further, or even be brighter or things like that. I don't know. I'm just
No, that's deep.
Yeah.
I'm putting a parallel to what that movie was and
No,
what
I
we're
get
talking
it.
about now.
I get it. Yeah.
Watch
Definitely.
it.
Lay off the edibles, Amber.
Huh?
Lay off the edibles.
I don't need edibles.
Just kidding.
Jeez, just because I'm smart, I gotta be on something.
Yeah.
No.
Expand your mind, bro. Expand your mind. Thanks for coming out
It's been our pleasure.
and doing the
Thank you.
podcast.
It's been our pleasure. We are going to be playing Saturday, August 5th at the Whiskey A Go-Go. You guys can go to our website, quetzalcoatlbandmusic.com. Click on the link to buy tickets, and there's more shows coming up in October too. So it's been great.
Yeah. Thank you very much.
Anything,
Had a
Jesse?
great time.
You good?
Real quick.
Where's he going?
1, 2, 3, cut.
I've been wanting to do this for a while, just to support Native American women from Canada to the U.S.
Go that way.
Nice.
According to people who've done statistics, unfortunately, the Indigenous female in the United States and Canada are the most raped, done violence to, murdered, and kidnapped or disappeared. So, and to be a little controversial, I asked, and I haven't got an answer on Instagram to some Native American Instagram sites. I was wondering, who is this? Is it just random people, like when they're traveling down the highway, they kidnap a Native American woman or rape her or kill her? Is it that? Or is it a problem on the reservations? Because, I'm sounding judgmental, but yeah, I'm gonna. If it's Native American men raping Native American women, that's sad. After all they've been through, they got to prosecute. And maybe I'm wrong, maybe it's not. But who is it? No one's mentioning, like, is it along a certain highway in North Dakota, South Dakota? It's even happening in Arizona or Wyoming. All these places, mostly women from reservations, and also some that are not. But who's doing it? It seems kind of strange. A strange phenomenon that's going on, and by asking questions, you could get to the bottom of it. That's all.
Thank you.
The Mind Buzz. I want you guys to come back again. That was awesome.
Yeah, that was great.
Have us over. I brought some.